You may be seated.
Since the beginning, mankind has been on a quest to decipher the origins of creation. Throughout the millennia, great minds developed technologies to search for answers and made the discoveries and inventions that have shaped our civilizations. Today, we are at the forefront of a new age where technological innovations and opportunities are moving forward at an accelerated pace, and you can be a part of it. The Univision Technology Center is a cornerstone of Univision's education efforts focused on increasing Latino diversity in technology. UTech provides a practical instruction and gathering space to educate our Latino community on the many aspects of technology and how to successfully pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Our initiatives in collaboration with private sector and nonprofit partners include events such as hackathons, robotics classes, programming, college education forums, professional networking, parents workshops, and more.
The Latino Tech Summit was created by LICI and Lula with the goal to be able to create a space for those in the tech sector as well as those trying to enter the tech sector.
We brought in a very diverse panel that can give us their insights about how they think as Latinos we can make an impact.
I grew up in a place where I didn't have a neighborhood computer lab. I wasn't exposed to the tech industry. So it's about the exposure I possess.
They give me the opportunity to practice my networking skills for one. I end up interviewing by myself and getting a job at NASA.
Whether you dream of making new discoveries, building the cities of the future, or colonizing Mars, it can all start here at UTech.
I'm Leticia Mendoza, Director of Community Empowerment. Join us on this journey.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Or today? Actually, very early. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce 2018 Economic Summit. My name is Luz Peña. I'm a reporter for Univision Channel 14 here in the Bay Area, California. I hope all of you watch our newscast. Raise your hand if you do. Good job. That's what we're talking about. Good job. Okay, I'm very happy to be with all of you guys today representing Univision at this wonderful event that seeks to provide our Latino community with the tools needed to be successful entrepreneurs. At Univision, we're extremely committed to helping our community, and we do this through initiatives like the one that you just saw right there in the video of UTech, which is our Univision Technology Center, a place to inspire Latino minds with the goal to help provide Latino diversity in technology. A place to empower the Latino community through STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. UTech was launched in May 2017, and we have already impacted over 3,000 people through this program. And we've done so many events, including free robotics and coding courses, K through 12 professional networking mixers, parents workshops, and more. What we have not provided yet is a taco class, but that will come in the future. We're also committed to helping our community by developing and fostering partnerships with local community organizations, institutions, and service providers with the mission to give our audience the tools and the information that they need in topics such as immigration, finance, health, education, and more. Latinos have great potential, obviously, we know that. We're smart, we're hard workers, and with the right guidance and tools, we can thrive in any industry. By the way, our Community Empowerment Director, Leticia Mendoza, is over there. Hi, Leti. The one that you just saw here on the screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to go to her and ask her anything about this program, UTech, which is wonderful. In addition to all these wonderful programs and events, we strongly support our community through the news coverage that we provide to our audience every single day during our local newscast. Noticias Univision 14 at 6 and 11 p.m. We're very proud to be the voice of our people through Tu Gente Tu Voz campaign, and we want to thank the Bay Area for making us the #1 newscast at 6 p.m. Thank you. Those are maybe our viewers calling. Thanks. It is my honor to introduce to all of you guys, the President and CEO of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Julian Cañete.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Liz, and good afternoon, everybody. Joey Canetti, many of you know me, and I proudly serve as not just the President and CEO of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, but as your CEO, serving you every and each day, whether it's here in Sacramento, whether it's in Washington, D.C., whether it's Los Angeles, whether it's San Jose. It's a position that I cherish, that I am having a wonderful time at, and I thank the board of directors for hiring me back in August and bringing me back to this fantastic group of Hispanic leaders throughout this great state of California. So thank you for this opportunity. I do want to welcome everybody. Isn't this a beautiful facility? Huh? Thank you, eBay. You know, this year is near and dear to all of us. It's our 40th anniversary as we're moving forward. The Chamber has been serving the Hispanic business community and community at large for over 40 years, for 40 years. Actually, because things started before that, it's well over 40 years. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Economic Summit. But one thing in our 40-year history, this is the first time that we've hosted and have partnered on the Economic Summit with a Fortune 500 company. And that's eBay, and we're very proud of that and their support as they are a leader in technology, business, and innovation. So please, another round of applause for eBay. And an interesting note, so as you know, the Hispanic Chamber, we're always fighting, our local chambers, we're always fighting for opportunities for entrepreneurs, for getting them into business. But 22 years ago, eBay had the vision of building a platform that someone could enter into business at zero cost, right? I had a product, I had stuff I wanted to sell, I want to make money, and eBay answered that call. So this year, so we're very proud of that, and now you can see the little matchmaking that's going on between the state chamber, eBay, and what we hope are our local chambers as well, as they help level that playing field for entry into entrepreneurship as we move forward. So as I said, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Economic Summit. It's interesting, the topics today, you know, technology and immigration. They're not only relevant to business today, but they're crucial for the advancement of our communities. And we need to, on the technology side, as many of you know, we need to stay ahead of the curve. So often, we answer the need and are reactive, right? When the state had a budget crisis, we reacted. We didn't think that we should teach businesses how to survive bad financial times. Now we do realize that's part of the program that we need to put in place. It's like with technology. It's here. I always tell everybody, I say, the cool thing about technology is technology grew up with me, right? So I was young, first computer was introduced, it was about the size of 2 of these couches, right? Many of you know. I mean, my favorite computer was an IBM 18, right? 20 megs of memory. Yeah, my cell phone has 10 times that now, right? You know, so, you know, you had to enter in, you know, everything else. It was before the mouse and all that cool jazz. But technology has changed not only our economy in this state, it has changed the way we do business. And it's ever changing. And we have to make sure that our Hispanic businesses, Latino businesses, are ahead of that curve and understand the changes they need to make. How do you implement that change? And more importantly, how do you sustain the economy? Not only with this new technology advances for you to do business and more business, but also creating new jobs. Right? You got to remember, we may displace jobs because of technology, but at the same time, we create a new job that requires a whole new skill set. And we also have a responsibility to say, how do we train individuals to meet those skill sets so that they can continue to be employed and be competitive in California's economy? And of course, immigration. Immigration is being discussed. I was just in Washington, and that's the hot topic, right? You know, how do we continue to meet our needs of our workforce and be able to create a comprehensive immigration reform for the entire nation? California, I mean, when we talk immigration, we are not only talking about the worker in the field, the worker in the restaurant. We are talking about the coder that comes here from overseas through H-1B visas and for the jobs that are needed by the tech industry. California continues to be a leader in supplying a skilled workforce, but we have huge demands for talent, and immigration plays a big role in that and moving California's economy forward. So again, you know, these federal issues such as immigration, we must, and we not only need, we must be a part of the conversation, right? And we need to be part of that solution. So one of the big things we want to do at the Chamber now is to be able to educate you more on these issues, how better to address them, but more importantly, how do we become part of the solution and help create that solution with our policymakers and our elected leaders. Today you will hear from eBay representatives, but a little bit later on in the program, but I do want to thank some of them who've made this event possible. We are excited about the relationship that we're developing with eBay. That is just beyond this event, but it includes other things such as entrepreneurship, business startups, diversity in their workforce and in their supplier chain, from policy issues. So we're really excited, and it speaks highly of eBay and their commitment to Hispanic business, but small business in California. This event would not be possible if it wasn't due to the hard work of, where's Layla? Layla way back there? Thank you, Layla. She's done a wonderful job working with our teams. Dominique Collins, I don't know if Dominique got here. And Dominique's here, and she'll speak a little bit later, and others from the eBay's government affairs team. We have their chief diversity officer, but we'll introduce him a little bit later. But it's exciting. I met with their government. It's funny, we're setting up this event, and our team's meeting with people here in San Jose, and I'm meeting with government affairs in Washington, D.C., because I happen to be back there. And they're excited at the federal level as well about all the help that we can give them on issues that they're facing as well. And before I forget, because I always do, I need to thank, this event was made possible not only by eBay, but a collaboration as we move forward with the State Hispanic Chamber, collaboration with our local chamber. Where's the crew from the Silicon Valley Hispanic Chamber? Dennis and his crew. Stand up, guys. Stand up for the crew. Thank you for working with my team, with the chamber team, and making the success of the eBay team and helping coordinate this wonderful event. And to my team, you guys wave. They're kind of humble, but they're all over the place, and they're what you calling me now? Move your tongue. They do a wonderful job, right? And I can't say enough about them and how they work with our local chambers. I got back from Dennis, and it was working out fantastic. When I can go do what a CEO needs to do and not have to worry about this event, it's wonderful. So I thank them for the wonderful job that they do and making sure that we're including our local affiliates in part of the process. I do want to thank two of our major sponsors for this event, JP Morgan Chase. Where are they at? You guys are over there? And of course, Luce and Univision Bay Area. So please thank them. As many of you know, we're a network of business associations, and we represent over 800,000 Hispanic entrepreneurs throughout the state of California. And I think, again, this partnership is important for creating even more. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the gentleman who is in charge of leading the design, the implementation and diversity inclusion across eBay's global workplace, and marketplace. So this just isn't a guy that's saying we need to have more diverse employees at eBay, but all the way around, this company in all its facets needs to have diversity. He is no stranger. He's a leader in this field. From his, I'll let him talk more about who he's worked for, but I don't know, did you take your former employer and have them bring you here today? So I used to work for Uber, was where he came from, and that's a little joke. I think I should have set it up a little bit better. But please, join me in welcoming Damian Hooper Campbell, the Chief Diversity Officer of eBay.
Hello everybody, how are you? All right, I know it's a little bit early, maybe some of you had some food, I get tired after I eat, but I'm gonna ask that again because we got a long day. Hello everybody, how you doing? All right, excellent. My name is Damian Hooper Campbell. I'm eBay's first Chief Diversity Officer, and I'm honored to be in this role. Thank you. I'm even more honored to be standing here today in front of all of you. And as I walked in today, and as I stand here and look across this room, I only have one question. Why in the heck didn't we do this earlier? Look around this room. This is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. Part of my job is to ensure that technology as an industry, but specifically at eBay, looks more like this room, and that the businesses that are on our platform look more like this room. And so we are very dedicated to that. Before I go any further though, I just want to give a big shout out. Let's give a shout out for Julian. I almost said por favor. You know what? I speak, and I was like, maybe I should break into it today, but might not want to mess up. Let's give a shout out to Julian, please. Next time, I promise I will, all right? I also want to give a big shout out to Dennis King, who has been an amazing partner. When I interviewed for this role, which was created by our CEO, Devin Winnick, and our Chief People Officer, so our Head of HR, Kristen Yeto, I interviewed for this role over 2 years ago. And as I sat in our CEO's office, he said, look, I need something different. What are we going to be doing different? And one of the things I knew was that we supported businesses across the world. And in particular, we supported underrepresented minority businesses across the world. But as I looked and dug a little bit further and thought about eBay, I said, well, what are we doing in our own backyard of California? What are we doing in our own backyard of San Jose? Enter Dennis King and his team, and we kicked off some work last year with something called eBay Jumpstart that was really focused on some partnerships with Dennis and San Jose City College that was focused on getting individuals just savvy to be on eBay and to use the platform. We are just scratching the surface. By a show of hands, how many of you have driven past this campus at least one time before? Show of hands. How many of you have ever come inside of these doors before? Okay, that's maybe 2% of that show of hands. This is your home. We don't sit here in this community as outsiders saying you can't come in, that we aren't a part of this community. When we were founded over 22 years ago, it was about community. And it's very clear that we need to double down on doing a better job at welcoming all of you in to this community. But I want to make it clear, in case it's ever questioned, that you heard it from my mouth, this is your home as much as it is ours, and so we welcome you. And just very quickly before I step down, a lot of people say, what in the world does it mean to be a Chief Diversity Officer? I gotta be honest with you. 6, 7 years ago, I had no clue either. And I think given the global context of what's going on politically and socially, the role that I have, that many of my peers share with me across different industries, it's changing every day. But let me tell you what diversity and inclusion means at eBay. We think about it in 3 buckets. First and foremost, our workforce. That's simply who we hire and how we go about hiring people. Let me make that really crystal clear for you. When I first joined, I took over our university recruiting team. And I said, show me a list of the colleges where we recruit. We had a lot of great schools that were on there, but there wasn't one historically black college in the university. I'm a proud alumnus of Morehouse College, a historically black college in Atlanta, Georgia. There wasn't one Hispanic serving institution on there. And there weren't any women's colleges. And it wasn't because people didn't care, we just hadn't been intentional. And I'm proud to say that after a year of leading this team and being more intentional about going to Hispanic serving institutions, historically black colleges, and women's colleges, we've increased the diversity within our summer intern class by 12% year over year. So that's workforce. That's one of the ways we think about diversity and inclusion. The other way is our workplace. This should be a no-brainer. What's the purpose of going out and getting amazing talent from all different backgrounds across the world if when they get here, it's not a welcoming environment? And so we spend lots of time and invest lots of money in making sure that the top talent we bring into eBay not only stays here, but thrives here and has equal opportunities to ascend up this ladder that we call eBay. One of the things I'm proudest of is one of our communities of inclusion. You may have heard of them referenced as employee resource groups, right? They're employee-led, they're sponsored by our senior leadership teams, and we have them focused on a number of different communities. The one that's focused on our Hispanic and Latino community is called Unidos. And one of the people who is absolutely responsible for building that is someone on my team who I want to give a shout out to, Daniela Martinez, who is a San Jose native standing right in the back. So you heard workforce, you heard workplace. The final way we think about diversity and inclusion, and this is the one that if I'm being honest with you, I'm probably most excited about and is most relevant to seeing you all here today. And that is our marketplace. What a big miss it would be for us if we weren't intentional about trying to get more people from a variety of different backgrounds onto the eBay marketplace to provide more people with the opportunity for economic independence. In our marketplace, we have people from all walks of life. There are over 170 million people, buyers in our marketplace worldwide, that provide over 1 billion listings. And so we have to be intentional not only to include the people who are on our marketplace today, but also the people who may not even realize that eBay can be a home for them. And so the marketplace is the third area, and one of the things we did to be intentional about that was we created 2 roles inside of the business. One of them you'll hear from a little bit later, which is Dominique Hollins, who you've met already, who is our seller diversity ambassador and travels all across the US to be intentional about getting more people from minority communities onto our platform. And the other one, and this is where I will close, she's not on the program. And many times the people who are the biggest heroes are the ones whose names you don't see and whose faces you don't see. But the other role that we created was for eBay's first ever multicultural marketing manager. And that is Layla Oile. Please stand, Layla. Layla has been working for months now to put this together behind the scenes. And it's with amazing talent like Layla and Dom and Denzel, who's here from Washington, D.C., from our government relations office, that we are so excited to partner with you all. This is just scratching the surface. By the way, if you're driving by again and you look over and you see our doors, come in. There's a coffee shop right there. You can come in, hang out, look for me. I'm Damian Hooper Campbell. My email is damian@ebay. You are welcome here. We are so excited. Thank you for this opportunity. Enjoy the day.
Thank you, Damien. I think we need more people like you in Silicon Valley. And just to expand your Spanish vocabulary, Damien in Spanish is Damiana. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Avianca Verdugo, representing the CHCC event sponsor, JP Morgan and Chase. Also my bank, just saying.
Buenas tardes. I'm very excited to be here this afternoon. Like she said, my name is Avianca Verdugo, and I have the pleasure of representing JP Morgan Chase this afternoon. And so on behalf of all of my colleagues, as well as business banking for Chase, we are extremely proud and excited to be sponsoring this event today. On behalf of our 14,000 California employees, we also want to thank you all for letting us be a part of this very important conversation and action agenda about our state's future. We are especially supportive of today's focus on Hispanic business owners. Chase is committed to helping local small businesses grow and thrive. We serve 4 million small businesses nationwide, and more than 65,000 of them are here in Santa Clara County. We are regularly one of the top 3 SBA lenders to Hispanic-owned businesses. I think most of us know that small businesses are vital engines in driving job creation and economic development in this country. But many entrepreneurs lack access to the resources needed for growth. Last month, we launched an initiative in Northern California called the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. The fund will provide capital for community lending partners to make loans and also provide technical assistance to minority-owned small businesses that might not otherwise qualify for traditional loans due to credit challenges or limited collateral. The typical business owner that will likely be part of this would be in the startup stage for their business, but the fund will also lend to legacy businesses, allowing more businesses to stay local despite threats like rising rents and costs. Likewise, JP Morgan Chase is proud to support La Cocina, an incubator program in the Bay Area that has achieved national recognition as a place where food entrepreneurs, particularly from culturally diverse and immigrant communities, can launch and grow successful food businesses and contribute to their local economy. We truly believe sustainable development is achieved when the most vulnerable and underserved populations have genuine access to opportunity. Working towards this goal is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. And it's an investment in our future. So let me once again thank you all for coming today and being a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Bianca. Now please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Silicon Valley, and SBDC Silicon Valley, SBDC Hispanic Satellite, Dennis King.
I think my staff, I have a wonderful staff who did so much work on this behalf, but they were scared silly that I was going to get off script. What script? What script? So let me just share a few thoughts. First of all, I thought I'd like to introduce you to yourself. Now my staff gets worried because they think I'm going to have every single one of you stand up to introduce yourself. And I'm tempted to do that. But instead of that, let me ask, for all those that are affiliated with Hispanic Chambers of Commerce throughout the state, could you stand up please? Including our board members? Active members, thank you. Please stand again for a moment. Small Business Development Centers. If you're affiliated advisors working on behalf of small businesses in the state, please stand up. Our partners, thank you, Carl. Our partners, Wells Fargo, a number of others that are here, stand up, stand up. May I ask you to please, oh, of course, eBay staff. You've done such a wonderful job. California Hispanic Chamber staff, thank you again. If you can stand up, if you're already, I think you're already behind the table here. Let me suggest to look around. Your best resource among community advocates are all around you. You're here. Thank you for the investment for you to be here. Take a few minutes today to get to know your colleagues. Thank you. Thank you. I think you'll find that there are great advocates and resources all among us. Take a moment to find out. You know, on a less joyful note, I am aware, as we are very aware, that there are forces in this land that want to build walls and expel our people. And the people, and those walls separate people from people who want to be together. Those walls are walls that tear apart families, that tear apart our legacy of an inclusive nation. And there should be a message going out from this day forward that there are people that are equally dedicated in this room and throughout the country, that we are dedicated so that when we come across those walls, we will build windows and doorways. Windows of opportunity and doorways of friendship and freedom. And we are so dedicated to make sure that that happens. Today, our discussions about immigration and technology are about doors and windows. We've been blessed, as our local Chamber of Commerce, to be able to dedicate doors and windows of opportunity to many of those that we've been serving. We were the first Chamber of Commerce in California to host a Small Business Development Center, the very first SBDC Hispanic satellite in the nation. Our friends in Southern California in Orange County started the second one. So today, let me offer you a challenge to my colleagues in other parts of the state to step up and do likewise. Let me share with you that, of course, all politics is local politics. And what we know in terms of what we've been doing is that it's more than just the numbers. Since we started the program in 2011, 17,000 small business owners and entrepreneurs had taken advantage of our services in our workshops, our events, and our one-on-one counseling. But more impressive than the 17,000 people that did that, more impressive than the 6,000 jobs they created, more impressive than the 4,000 jobs they saved that would have been eliminated otherwise, and more than the $50 million of capital investment and loans that went to those small businesses. More important than all of that is the single recognition that every one of them has a unique story. A story about their family, a story about their past as well as their future. And that's what we're about, is empowering those stories. Because fundamentally, they're not just here in our community, they are our community. May I add to that, we're aware that some time ago, actually 22 years ago, a friend of mine helped a startup company that was also advocating the breaking of barriers between buyers and sellers on the web. Kind of an odd business called Auction Web, as I would call it. But they helped guide them, they opened the doors for them, other people joined them. He was so impressed. He was working at the time for the city of San Jose. He quit the government jobs to work on this enterprise, and the business grew. Over time, it evolved, it changed its business model slightly, it changed its name. Today, that name is called eBay. eBay was a startup here in San Jose 22 years ago. And every day of every year, they are opening the doors to hundreds of thousands of people across the globe. And it started right here. A figment of somebody's imagination, and somebody opened the door to make this happen. Thank you, eBay. Thank you. If I can also say that we've been empowered locally and to have the doors open for us by our next speaker. She has allowed us, by opening doors for us in this program, that she and our colleagues on the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors allowed us to open the doors for many others. She's our champion, our hero. She's our friend, County Supervisor Cindy Thomas.
Embarrass Dennis a little bit. Would anybody enjoy that? All right. So first of all, I'm so excited to see all of you here. How many of you are not from Santa Clara County? You're from somewhere else. Welcome. Why did we make them sit in back? That wasn't very neighborly. We're sorry about that. So first I wanted to start by just saying how excited I am to be here. And second, to say this. All of you offer such incredible opportunities to your local governments that I hope you do what Dennis did. Dennis came to the county and said, you, county, are not doing enough around economic development. And the fact of the matter is, he was 100% right. And county, we as an institution can help you help others in your community get a leg up, especially while the economy is moving, in a way that we won't have a window of opportunity again. What Dennis did with the county was persuaded us to spend, in partnership with him, $260,000 a year over 3 years to get those 17,000 person results he talked about. Why do I mention that? I mention that because in partnership, it allows us as the government to be able to leverage private sector entrepreneurship, talent, innovation in a very smart, cost-effective way. I think this is a story we need to tell up and down the state because you can partner with local government in a way that really does change lives. Second, through Dennis's private sector partnerships, he's really allowed the county to leverage resources, opportunities, and innovations that we never could otherwise. Because we don't have the kinds of relationships that each of you have in your communities, the kind of trust that you have in your communities. So, make us do it. I always tell people in the public, when you want government to do something innovative, get in there and make us do it. And Dennis, if you know Dennis, you know that he's like a tortuga. He just keeps walking at you until you have no choice. So I would say be a little like that in your work. The other thing I want to say is that in partnership with people like Dennis, we've been able to do really incredible things. So the County of Santa Clara was, in partnership with the County of San Francisco, the County and City of San Francisco, sued the Trump administration over the sanctuary policy initiatives and won. Now, I mention that today because these deep, meaningful partnerships matter in business and they matter in real people's lives. What you all do is help people realize their dreams through finances and through their work. What we have to do is create an environment that is truly safe for everybody to live, work, and play here. And I'm going to close with something about Silicon Valley that many people don't know, and if you've been here a long time, you've heard me say this 32,000 times, so I'll just apologize in advance. 40% of everybody who lives here is foreign-born in this county. 40. Over half of the households in this community speak a language other than English at home as their primary language. What is profound about that is that in human history, and this is important, the county and the city became one of the first counties and cities in the country to be a majority of no single ethnicity. And what was significant is we didn't see what people said we would see. We didn't see the spike in crime. We didn't see neighborhoods being divided. What that means is that it's very important that here in Silicon Valley and wherever you're working, that we're part of the tip of the spear that demonstrates that you can be prosperous, live in a very diverse, healthy community, come from all over, and live in peace and prosperity. Yeah. That is the message I hope all of you take home today, and we are so grateful you're here in Silicon Valley today, and grateful to you, Tortuga.
Thank you, Dennis and Cindy. Collin, eBay seller, diversity ambassador leading efforts that enable economic opportunity for diverse business owners through eBay's marketplace.
So I'm a talker, and I like to walk and talk. So first I'd like to say again, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for having me today. I'm very excited for you all to be here. I've actually technically been up since 3 a.m. I literally just got off a flight from Florida, and so I'm very excited to be in this room today. So as mentioned, my name is Dominique Collins, and I'm super excited to be in the room. And I also want to say thank you to JP Chase, because that was one of my first internships. So their commitment to diversity is consistent, and so I'm glad to have you all in the room today. So we're going to talk about a number of things. One, Damien already mentioned the purpose of my role and the fact that I'm focused and targeted on making sure that minority-owned businesses and underrepresented communities have the same opportunities as other communities where it comes more frequently, the opportunities we're going to talk about today. But one thing I want to do to start is an article that I saw actually on the way here, which is very startling, and I thought it was very timely. September 19th, 2017, Fortune magazine, is it Fortune or is it Fortune? I'm going to say Fortune. Fortune magazine published an article, and the subject title says, Blacks and Latinos will be broke in a few decades. A few is 3, decades are 10, that's 30 years, that's one generation. And to that I say, not on my watch. What we are experiencing right now are times that I never anticipated seeing at this day and age. I saw things that happened back when my grandmother grew up, and I feel like it's happening again. And so to see a subject line like that, to know the opportunity that's available in this room, to know what we're able to do together, we can only succeed when we work in partnership with that. So as a Black woman, I unapologetically say, in solidarity with the Hispanic community, that is not going to happen to us. 40 years of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. I look forward to not only the 40 you've done, but the 40 you will continue to do. And I thank you for the work that you have done for the community. So a round of applause for your consistency and your determination. So one of the things I love most, it's not just my intent as an individual to ensure that we all have economic access to opportunity, equal access to economic opportunity. What I love most is I actually get to work for a company that believes it too. In fact, I would not work here if it were not intentional for eBay to make sure that these underrepresented communities had access. And so I want to take you through not only how we were founded, but where we are today and where we will be going moving forward along with you. So I want to say thank you again. 40 years is huge. We will be approaching 23 for eBay. We got 17 more to catch up with you, but we will be growing together. So on that note, let me introduce you to someone you may not know. This stunning young fellow is actually our founder, Pierre Midyar. And I start with his story because it was a very simple one, and one that you all might be able to relate to. As a French-born Iranian-American immigrant, at 28 years old on Labor Day, as a hobby, he simply wanted to create an open marketplace with the pretense that people are naturally good. If you give them the opportunity, they will do the right thing. It's when you get in the way of those opportunities that things get a little murky. And so what he did was he created a platform that enabled the exchange of goods between individuals, and it did not matter who you were. And so I always try to tell Pierre's story because, one, it was a hobby. And many of you have hobbies that you have started that have turned into your business. It has changed the lives of your families and your communities, and we want to continue to enable that. And it started with this gentleman here at just 28 years old. So the years of wisdom that he has grown over time, I'm looking at that wisdom in this room. You are no different from me. In 1995, when he started that story, he had a simple vision. He was an entrepreneur with a vision and a passion, that if you give everyone access to the opportunity, watch what they would create with it. He believed that everyone is born equally capable, but lacks equal access to the opportunity. And that's a common theme that we've heard. There is no difference between the people in this room. The only difference among any of us is how hungry you are. How badly do you want it? Are you the first in your family? Are you the only one in your family? Are you the game changer? And that's what he did to make sure that everyone in this room had that opportunity. The first sold item on auction web, which is what eBay was titled before it became eBay, was a broken laser pointer. I want to be clear. A broken laser pointer sold for $14.83 on this website. So Pierre was so confused, he actually called the buyer and he said, "You know this is broken, right?" And he says, and I quote, "I know, I collect broken laser pointers." And so that is the surrounding of our story, which feeds what we now call this finer version of perfect. See, what might not be something that you deem to be relevant might be very important to someone else. And he wanted to be clear before he sold them. He didn't want to make sure that they got a prank lighter pointer and that when they turned it on, it didn't shine on the wall. He said, "No, I want it to be broken. In fact, if you fix it, I'll probably give it back." Okay. That's the beginning. In 1997, that growth was so exponential, the internet service provider that Pierre was using actually contacted him. And he said, "You have so much traffic, you have to start charging." So the members of his site went from $30 a month to $250 a month, and no one complained. That was the moment he knew he was on to something, because the value of what Pierre had created was not only understood by him, but it was understood by the individuals in this room that that $250 a month was worth what they were going to create moving forward. So from auction web to eBay in 1997, eBay was created. And so what we've seen since then is 21 years of growth. Sustainability. Now, you all know the tech bubble. There are a lot of companies that started then that are not here today. But look at this facility. Look how far we've come. We've managed to survive by enabling you. In fact, we are not successful if you are not successful. From the technology that we build, the understanding of your needs, being able to keep up with the marketplace has enabled us to continue to be successful, while also getting the right buyers on the platform and giving to the charities as well. This is a circular economy. Everybody wins with eBay, and that is a profound statement. Now, in 2018, we service over 170 million buyers and over 190 markets, starting on a Labor Day for someone who's doing a hobby. I want you to think about those numbers and what that volume entails. And it enables economic opportunity for folks all across the world. This isn't just the US, this is a global economy that we are servicing, which for us equates to 24/7 equal access to economic opportunity. It does not matter where you are. We have sellers that stay up all night. They like to hear the cha-ching. I think we all like to hear the cha-ching once an item is sold. This is what the platform enables. So, a couple of things I want to know. How many of you actually shop on eBay? Now, don't be shy. This is the time to be honest. How many of you shop on eBay too? Okay. So, one thing I want you all to know, how many of you will be shopping on eBay after today? Oh, I expected more hands, but we'll work on that. We got some work to do. So, one thing, I wanted to leave you all with some updates in case if you're unfamiliar with who we are or who we used to be that one time you might have shopped with us in the past. Actually, 81% of the items that we sell are new. They're not auction items. You don't have to bid and wait 3 days to see if you want. You can buy it now. 2/3 of those items are packaged and delivered within 3 business days or less. Not 2 weeks, not an unquestionable amount of time because the seller didn't get back to you. We are speeding up. We're catching up with the game. 70% of those items ship for free. You don't even have to pay for the package. So all you have to do is pay for the item. And lastly, there are 1.1 billion listings, which is really for us, 1.1 billion opportunities for someone to find their version of perfect. So whether you want a brand new pack of laser pointers or a broken laser pointer, this is your place to find them. And for those of you who don't know, we actually found Mark, which is the gentleman who bought the laser pointer. We bought that back from him. And if you haven't seen it, it is actually outside, so when you, not during my presentation, but after the event, if you go outside, you will not only see the laser pointer, but there's a detailed overview of what that story was. So it's very important to us. Some other things we want to know. This is eBay at a glance. Now I want to be very clear. This isn't just our numbers. These numbers don't exist without you. 2.6 billion in revenue, that's you. If you don't sell, we don't win. 170 million global active buyers. So think about, for the business owners in the room, for your family members, for those who will become business owners after you listen to me, how many buyers do you have today? And I think 170 million sounds quite enticing. 12.7 billion mobile volume. There are people buying cars with cell phones. Can you conceptualize that? Do you also remember when million was a lot? We're in the billions now. Remember when a million was a big deal? Now we're in B's and T's. I look forward to the next one. 57% of that is international revenue. Did you know that 80% of e-commerce sales do not happen in the US? And yet we are a global marketplace. Yet again, another opportunity. 391 million app downloads. So whether they're shopping on their desktop or on the phone, in the car from the airport like myself, there are 391 million folks who are looking at our items. And lastly, 24.4 billion in gross merchandise volume. We're not just selling pens, we're selling cars and auto parts and electronics. This is a growing company and we do it alongside you. I'm not going to get into diversity too much. Damien did a really good job of talking about our workforce and our marketplace. I do want to highlight two things. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I didn't realize how segregated the city was until I moved to California. I remember when I first walked into a grocery store and I said, wait a minute, they all shop in the same grocery store? There's Asians and Indians and then there are Hispanic people. I was very excited and pardon my ignorance, but seriously, that was my experience. And so when I get to work with Leila Wile and Daniela Martinez, some of my closest friends in the office, we're in the trenches together. This isn't a us and them, this is a we. Because when they talk about minorities, we're lumped. We're lumped in. There is no dissecting. They put us all in the same pot, and we have to grow together. Being in the marketplace means that Leila and myself have very intentional roles. It is our responsibility to make sure events like this are on eBay's radar. I have my VP walk up to me and say, Dom, how do I get in front of sellers? Where do I need to be and when? I said, wait, let me call Leila. I got some places for you on the buyer side, I got some seller side, but they want to know. But if Leila, Damien, myself, and Daniela don't exist, then who is there to tell them? So I appreciate Damien and what he's done in creating this opportunity, and I'm very much so happy to be working with him. Another thing is that we're creating a better form of e-commerce. We just want to open the door to you. We've opened the doors, the windows, the garage is open. You can come down the chimney. It doesn't matter. The house is open. You've already received the invite, and he gave you his email address. I don't know why he did that. He don't answer my emails. But I look forward to, I'm sure he'll answer yours. This is what we're doing. We're changing the game. If you didn't know eBay today, when you leave, I hope that you're enthused by the fact that we work on behalf of you. We are a partner to our sellers. We were built for you. If we don't win, you don't win. And these are just a handful of the faces that we support. They're in these communities. They're in Florida, where I just came from. They're in communities like Akron, Ohio. Everyone is here, but they don't always know that eBay works on behalf of them. And quite frankly, how many companies right now work on behalf of the clients and customers they claim to serve versus the profits that they hope to get from that? Opportunity for all. We don't just talk to talk, we walk it as well. There are about 6.7 million, as of 2016, people just like you benefiting from our platform. There are also 4.4 million Hispanic-owned businesses in the US, so I'm looking for that number, carry 1, try 11.1. I'm looking for that number to go all the way up. So as many of you all who want to join this platform, there's that opportunity. In addition to that, established SMB businesses with us grow 5 times faster than the gross domestic product of our nation. Can you imagine that? Being someone who might have started one job where you didn't have a job at all and you started with eBay and you are growing faster than the nation's GDP. And then lastly, 96% of our sales are export. It's not just the US. We can't just be US-centric. It is a global economy. We are evolving. The things that have to be done, the buyers and sellers who want access to our country and our nation We enable that with 96%. That's an astonishing number. But our sellers can tell you their story better, like Margarita Dolby. Margarita Dolby, I love her story because she started as a software engineer. On the HR side, we're fighting to get that talent. And she said, you know what? I'm going to go and start an eBay business because a family member said, hey, you already make barrels. Why don't you just sell them on eBay? And now she is successful. Feel free to take a picture. That's her store. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. You can go, we like barrels, and have it as decoration in the home. But these are some of the families that we support. And this is one of our sellers, just an example. And then another one of our sellers is Angie Cardona-Nelson, who you will hear from on the panel today. Her story is very similar. Not that she started as a software engineer, but that she took advantage of the opportunity. And right now, her focus on making sure we have environmentally friendly products, she's repurposed electronics, and that is her business model. But it's best said through her, not through me. So let's hear her story.
We are an electronic recycling company. So our mission is to extend the life of all of the electronics as much as possible and divert electronics from the landfills. Recycle is the right thing to do. This is our home, our planet, and we have to take care of it. It makes me frustrated to see such a waste of electronics that we are creating. We want to change that. Today there is a big gap in the workforce for women and immigrants, and I want to help close that gap. We are 13 people right now in our team. Just that freedom, and I'm giving them opportunities. And I'm allowing them to inspire them and empower them. I'm just a girl from Santa Rosa de Cabal, a small town in Colombia. If I am successful, why can't other people? Our future is bright. It will keep me energized to keep fighting for the rights of women and immigrants, and to just keep growing our company and hiring more people and just keep bringing the opportunities.
I'm loud. Oh, there you go. Okay. Angie, if you wouldn't mind standing for just a moment. Don't be shy. We just want to celebrate. One more round of applause for Angie. You all will hear from Angie a little later. But again, I just want to say to you, how often does an opportunity come knocking at your door? It doesn't. Not too often. And when it does, you can't pass it by. But eBay intends to be here. We had 22 years running. We had another 22 years. Imagine how far we can grow together. So with that said, again, I am very proud of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce and their 40 years of history. I look forward for the 40 years to come. I look forward to the businesses who are still, if you're thinking about it, hopefully you join the family today, because that's truly what eBay is. I want to say gracias and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dominic. I loved all those stories, especially the one about the hobbies. Let's not put them aside. I want to actually encourage all of us to think about what would we do if we knew that we couldn't fail, and actually go for it and do it. Okay, so with that in mind, I want to talk about the Latino Business Action Network. This is a nonprofit entrepreneurship organization based in Palo Alto. Its vision is to strengthen the United States by improving the lives of Latinos through entrepreneurship, education, and support network. This will be the third time that the research is conducted through a collaboration with the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, LBAN, and it has helped to create a database of over 1.3 million U.S. Latino-owned companies. If I can have your attention to the screens for a look into the amazing program.
The Latino Business Action Network, LBAN, is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are here to fund research and education impact programs at Stanford University.
I'm coming from Los Angeles, California.
Austin, Texas.
Kansas City, Missouri.
New York City. Austin, Texas.
Salt Lake City.
San Angelo, Texas.
Los Altos Hills, California.
Miami, Florida.
It is an honor to be a part of this program and to be among so many successful Latino and Latina entrepreneurs.
And then seeing that there's an actual program that's, that has Stanford backing it, to really push this initiative across the country is huge and exciting for me.
Many of these companies, many of these entrepreneurs are here. They will be able to scale the company and create amazing wealth.
Our view is that if we can do things to increase the wealth of the Latino community, then these other things will start to spill out.
The best thing would be to have Latino entrepreneurs grow their companies, create wealth, but reinvest that into the community.
The relationship that we had with our mentor was extremely helpful, really helped us focus on the things that was important to the program.
I am very honored to be part of this program. I mean, to have this kind of network and this kind of mentorship to scale the business.
I think it's excellent. It feels great to be part of a program that looks for growth.
Our economic goal is to double the number of 10 million, 100 million, and $1 billion Latino-owned companies in the U.S. by 2025. This is a big, hairy, audacious goal.
That's the most powerful and effective way to strengthen the country over the long term. So our purpose, very simply put, is to strengthen this country by improving the lives of Latinos, and we want to improve their lives right now by trying to increase their wealth through entrepreneurship.
Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a community visionary and leader, the Executive Director of the Latino Business Action Network and former CEO of the Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Madrid.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Dominique, Damien, thank you for those messages. I like what Dominique said specifically, not under my watch, right? So I think we should remember those words. California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, it is a remarkable opportunity to be here with you today. I come spreading the evangelism of a driving force of our American economy, Hispanic business.
Yep.
Right? So we should champion that and applaud that. And I'm doing so from a place that I now call home, California. It took a while to get here, but I came here as quickly as I could. And I concur that this is a place to dream big. Although I'll still wear my boots, and I'll explain all that here in a little bit. I can assure you that I now pay California income tax, that I received jealous comments from the Post with the belleza of California, and most of all, proud to call you my California familia. We all have more in common than what divides us. Let's never forget that. Let's never forget that, because we are in a critical stage. Now, I come back to Hispanic business in the U.S. and Hispanic business in California. It's timely to be at our economic summit. I say ours because Dominique, I also am an early bird. As of 5 a.m. this morning, I joined the Silicon Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. This is also timely because these are times of division and rhetoric. And I'm talking today not about an emerging sleeping giant. I'm talking today about an emerged, aroused giant, Hispanic business. Y como una familia típica hispana, We have family have emerged around giants with us. It is truly a new day. And I'm excited and energized about this new day because Hispanics from coast to coast are catalyzing education, workforce development, economic development, and GDP. When we say it's our time, we can finally celebrate that, internalize it. It's our time. So let's talk a little economics. Did you know that if U.S. Latinos were a country, we'd have the 7th largest GDP in the world? Yes! I've had a few speakers before me, so I'm going to add a little punch here, okay? But 7th largest GDP in the world. This is a new concept, Latino GDP, that you'll see from this point forward. And we know about home ownership. The fastest home ownership rate of growth is amongst Hispanics, almost 75%. Thank you. We have some realtors in that house, I can feel it. We all know that by 2060 we'll be 30% of the population, and it doesn't stop there. Between 2010 and 2016, Hispanics made up 76.4% of the growth in the labor force. Yes. So when you talk about U.S. and economic indicators, Hispanics have their footprint all over that. And oh yes, let's talk about California, the 6th largest global economy in the world. And home to a quarter of all U.S. Hispanic-owned businesses right here in the state of California. This, what I just shared with you, should all fuel what I call radical hope. Radical hope. Radical hope is an evolved and graduated state of mind, and it all began, for me anyway, in a small Texas panhandle farming community called Friona, Texas. You may not know where that is. Most people don't. It's a blink you miss kind of community with one stoplight. But that's where I grew up. The cattle outnumber the people there. It's called the cheeseburger capital of the world. Oh, how did I get there? Well, my parents met on the cotton fields, hoeing cotton, because that's where the jobs were. They were migrant farm workers. And I think this is important because this is also an introduction of me to you. And I have my lapel pin now, and I intend to wear it many times. But at a young age, my dad was entrepreneurial. He was an entrepreneur in the making. And he realized early that the cotton fields were not going to be his destiny. And so he picked up each trade that he could, wanting to learn, following the footsteps of my matriarch grandmother, Marcela Madrid. Anyhow, he started drawing blueprints on napkins, and he felt like he was pretty good at it. And ultimately, it led to him opening and launching his business, the Marcus Madrid Jr. welding business. And when you take a look at my mom, she grew up in a one-room cinder block home for a family of 6. And what is now a ghost town, there still stands erect that one-room cinder block home as a reminder. So my dad said he became known as the guy, right, that would weld and keep the cattle in their pens at what we call feedlots in that area of the country. So what he would say, if it doesn't smell like shit, it doesn't smell like money. So I have a different interpretation of the word shitty. So anyhow, that's where we grew up. My mom, I told you about my dad. And so I was raised in a household that really didn't understand the concept of education. What they did understand is that they knew it was important for me to get educated. And that's what I did. I didn't know how to go about the process, but since I won my first blue ribbon in 3rd grade, I realized that that was going to be the way out of the small town for me. Because for me, it just wasn't the place that I wanted to aspire to living. And so I was in a place that didn't have a lot of Hispanics in the community at that time. So I was blessed to become the first valedictorian, Hispanic valedictorian in the 8th grade and high school in the history of the town. And that led to a full scholarship at the University of Texas. And I went on to launch my career on Wall Street after graduating from UT Austin. So it was oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that because at that time I didn't have any mentors. I was just doing what I could to survive the street, 16-hour workdays, low sleep. And one of my projects was, should we divest a $400 million, divest or retain a $400 million mortgage portfolio? It's like, inside I was like, what's a mortgage portfolio? And I had 4 weeks to assess that. I went on to continue my banking career, get stronger, but still without mentorship. I think this is an important theme that I'm bringing to you. But I managed to develop a new dream to become the CEO of a bank one day. And I was on the path, trying to learn different areas of the operation. I know Hispanic executives understand that. I've got some Hispanic Chamber blood, so I'll talk about that in a little bit too. But I started learning underwriting, development, IT, operations. And so I rose to the number 2 person at a regional bank in Houston, Texas. But guess when that was? During the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. Although we were a paper lending institution, I found out New Year's Eve 2007 that we were shuttering down. And don't tell your employees. I didn't have a rainy day fund. And I'm still scarred from that moment of not telling my employees, many of them who were 15, 20 years older than I was, some of them single mothers. But going through that process and shutting down that bank in March of 2008 is something that really formed my character. They say character is built through adversity. Well, I have a lot of character. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I decided in the corner of a Starbucks, it's true, it's not just a fancy line in the bio, but I was literally there, what am I going to do? And then came the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I got an opportunity to start there. But as the number 2 in a bank, guess where I started? Selling small business memberships and sharing a cubicle. And throwing away my paychecks. But I kept persevering because I knew that I had found the passion. I had found the driving force of what I call living legacy. And that is to support Latino and Latina business owners. I was promoted 5 times until I became the CEO in waiting as COO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And in that process, at 40, I decided to pursue an MBA in nonprofit at Notre Dame, Mendoza College of Business. Go Doers! Doers in the house, maybe? Go Irish. That pursuit of education, I'm going to come back to that, so mentorship and education, led to the opportunity to graduate and become CEO of the Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And during that 10-year run between Houston and Austin, I met many of you here in the audience. It was a great pleasure. We've gone through a lot together. And that's why I come here with a point of relatability in terms of the Chamber blood. What you do is so vitally important. And I want you to understand that this critical state that we're in, it's more important than ever for our Hispanic chambers to grow, to prosper, for corporate America like eBay and JP Morgan Chase to keep supporting our Hispanic chambers, for you all have the vision to be disruptors and to embrace technology. As one of you, my radical hope is that we not only subsist, that not only that we hang around for another 40 years, but that we become that driving force representing the catalyst of our American economy. Your work today, the 50-plus Hispanic chambers comprising the CHCC, remarkably critical. I applaud and commend the efforts that are occurring right now under the leadership of Julian, and of course, the staff, and Chairman Montes, and the board, the regional leadership, and all the individual Hispanic chambers that make up this conglomerate. It's time to work together, right? It's time to mobilize, not just say it. So we need you. We need you. America needs you. Corporate America needs you. Elected officials need you. And we need you at the Latino Business Action Network and the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative. Let me repeat that. That sounds so good. Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative. So let me put some clarity about what it is that we do. We have just 3 priorities, and I'm so thrilled because sometimes I've been part of other organizations or companies that had a list of 10. 3 priorities. First is research. Without data, you don't have a force. So we have bedrocked the most robust research in the country on Latino and Latina business owners out of Stanford. So I come here as a 1-2 punch, and I can guarantee that what you're going to hear after me, the second punch, is a lot more profound than what I deliver here, to be delivered by somebody that I admire and respect, Marlene Orozco. So we work together as a collaboration. The Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative is a collaboration between LBAN and Stanford University. So, by the time you walk out of here, just like I want you to look at that laser pen, please don't look during my remarks either, I'll be offended. I'm going to go take a look at some point. But you're going to walk away with this report because it's housed in our link, the full 26 pages. It's not data from 1888, it's data from 2017. And that should excite you because it talks about our catalytic type of driving force. But it also talks about reality. The good news is that Latino and Latina business owners, in terms of startups, are outpacing the general market 2 to 3x on average the last 10 or 15 years. That's great, and it's going to continue. But on the other side, we have to be honest. And this is when I come back to Dom's comment of not under my watch. Only 2% of the ecosystem of Latinx entrepreneurship across the country is scaled. And we define that as over $1 million of annual gross revenues. Only 2%. I wish there were skews, but it's the same story in Los Angeles, and San Francisco, San Diego, El Paso, Dallas, Houston, Austin, Miami, New York, Chicago, fill in the blank. Friends, we got to do something about that. So that's why I say not under my watch and not under our watch. So what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? That's a critical question. I just don't want to be up here as a keynote address and just give you a rah-rah speech. What are we doing about it? Well, we're coalescing that top 2% of the ecosystem to come to Stanford and do a scaling excellence course. It's a 7-week immersive course, and it's bookended by 2 visits to Stanford. An opening kickoff weekend. I'm very interested in talking to you about that. An opening kickoff weekend at Stanford. Entrepreneurs go back and run their lives and their businesses, come back to Stanford for a graduation 7 weeks later. Now you might ask, well, what about the other 98%? If you really know me and you get to know me on social or anything else, you'll know that I care about all Latino and Latina businesses. Otherwise, I wouldn't have devoted the last 15 years of my life, and will continue to do so from this point forward. We feel that this particular cluster, this is what we can support at the moment. If we were a catch-all, it'd be a recipe for failure. We've got to focus on a target market, and for now, because you all know, it's a day of limited resources. We're trying to focus on that market. They're already scaled, we want them to further scale, and then we want some of them to double in size. And we hope that somehow, that there's some lessons from this group that can extend to those others. And we hope that we, potentially, if it's the right fit for you out there, that are not scaled in terms of this definition, that you feel that this might be an aspirational element for you. I hope it is. If I was a business owner and I failed twice, I don't have that on my LinkedIn profile, but I'll tell that to you. Yeah, shouldn't it be an aspiration if you're not at $1 million that you want to get to the $1 million level? Whether it's with us at Stanford or somebody else, we hope you get there, and the full expectation is that you will. So we invite you to be part of this movement. We are a national organization that has true benefits, not lip service, for your engagement. We have research, data, educational opportunities for scaled Hispanic companies, and hopefully some mentorship for those that are not scaled at the moment. We are addressing capital deserts and nurturing a narrative that is an American economic imperative. And the humanizing aspect, and this is where I get really excited, of all that we do is represented by our rock stars, our alumni. And I'm thrilled and energized to see some of them in the room. And some of them are here in spirit, like Maria Urena, who also serves as one of your regional leaders. She's the CEO of King Automotive. Maria is not only playing in a man's world, she is playing in it very, very well. And perhaps she could be a trigger for that not to be a male-dominated industry. So I want to give Maria Urena a round of applause. She's not here, but she's here in spirit for the work that she's doing. We have alumni like Carlos Lopez and Tony Martinez with Latino Tax Pros, and they're sitting right over there. Hi, guys. They are ensuring that the Latino and Latina taxpayer is respected, valued, and coveted as they should be. So we give you a round of applause, fellas. We have alums like Marco Ramirez, sitting right here. This man grew up in East San Jose, earned his degree in construction management, and launched his construction business 17 years ago. So congratulations, sir. What Marco says is that he's building his legacy business. I love that. Because if we live toward a legacy at the eulogy, it's too late. Let's focus on that now. And we have alums like Maria Castellon, right here from Santa Clara. CEO of BitchTech. Maria came to this country with a high school education. And all she did was leverage an opportunity in the middle of a dot-com crash and launch BitchTech Solutions. And what is that? Well, they manufacture workbenches, carts, and racks for clean room environments. She has differentiated herself and become a procurement all-star, not only in the eyes of Fortune 500s in the Silicon Valley, but across the country. Congratulations, Maria. And we have alums like Miguel Galarza sitting right here, Miguel, from San Francisco, owner of Yerba Buena Engineering and Construction. And friends, this is what really gets me out of bed every morning. I'm an early bird. This is breaking news. Just days ago, Yerba Buena won the inaugural Diverse Business of the Year awarded by the National Contractors Association. That is to be applauded and championed. Thank you, sir. So my radical hope then is a consequence of evolved DNA, fearlessness, courage, and true grit. And where I get those last attributes are from the Latino and Latina business owners across the state of California and across the country. It is our time to thrive here in the world's 6th largest economy. But to leave it there would be the norm for other speakers. And I'm not just another speaker. I'm not going to leave it there because I'm real. Although the state of Latino entrepreneurship is optimistic, and you'll hear more about that in a few moments, we have a long way to go. And we have a long way to go in California. So what I am serving up today, in addition to realness, along with radical hope, is a call to action. We have to work together. No, and not just a slogan, but real, actionable, tangible results. And we need you all to participate with us. And in return, we will continue to supply what everybody wants, research and education. And we hope that whether you qualified or not, that you keep our scaling program on the radar. After all, out of our 350 graduates, over 60 come from the great state of California. Yes. I told you that only 2% of the ecosystem is scale. Well, let me tell you about this group, 350 graduates in just 3 years of our program. Combined annual revenues for this group north of $1.2 billion, employing 17,000 across the country from 30 states. Now just imagine what happens when this organization reaches 1,000 alumni, and 2,000, and 5,000, then 10. Now we're really talking, and people will notice. So as I close, I leave you with a favorite quote of mine. It's from, I'm a sports guy, so it's from Coach Vince Lombardi of the Packers. From his speech, What It Takes to Be #1. Because I think we unapologetically should go after being #1. There's nothing wrong with that. And he says, I firmly believe that man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment that he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in a good cause and lies on the field of battle, exhausted, victorious. I know, looking around the room, some of you have been battling for a long time, and the battlefield has been exhausting. And I see some of you who are just entering this marketplace, and it will be an exhausting battlefield. But what I'm here to say is it will be ultimately victorious. So let's stand up and act and have radical hope to move mountains with velocity and create the change that we have been dreaming about for generations. And I know that if my mom and dad were here, they might not understand what Economic Summit means, but they would know that their sacrifice was worth it. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now it is with great honor that I introduce an amazing colleague, a peer, a leader, Marlene Orozco, who's really going to provide you the data. I hope I see that California Voice hashtag going viral on social media. Let me tell you a little bit about Marlene, who's just joined me here. Is a research analyst with the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative and a PhD candidate in sociology. She holds a BA from Stanford with honors and a master's in education policy and management from Harvard. Prior to returning to graduate school, she was a 4th grade lead teacher at a charter school on the east side of San Jose, California. Exactly! Marlene is trained in both qualitative and quantitative methods of research. She is an IES Fellow in Quantitative Education Policy Analysis, a Mellon Fellow, an Edge Fellow, and a mentor at Stanford. Her current research focuses on immigrant integration and pathways of social mobility through entrepreneurship. And aside from that, what I can tell you is Marlene is a breath of fresh air. I cannot imagine this journey without her. So I introduce Marlene Orozco.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mark Madrid, for those inspiring words. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today to share key findings from our 2017 survey of U.S. Latino business owners and regional data from the state of California. Before I review some key findings from our latest research, I want to provide some background information on our larger research program. At the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, our research program exists to better understand two powerful realities that are happening in our country. First, we know that the rate at which new Latino firms are being created is outpacing Latino population growth. We also know that Latinos are starting businesses at a higher rate relative to other demographic groups. Still, scaling remains a challenge, as our survey data reveal that about 3% of Latino-owned businesses are generating at least $1 million in annual revenue or more per year. And we define this group as scaled firms, which serves as one benchmark in which to measure the success of the businesses in our survey. In contrast, there are about 6% of scaled firms in the non-minority population in the US. We have been reporting on the state of Latino entrepreneurship since 2015, when we uncovered an immense opportunity gap of $1.38 trillion left on the table if only Latino-owned businesses were as large as their counterparts. In today's dollars, that's about $1.47 trillion. Since nearly 1/4 of all Latino businesses are located in California, California-based Latino entrepreneurs can expect their opportunity gap to be about $338 billion. It is our goal at the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative to research and collect national survey data on Latino-owned businesses every year, where we are learning new information about the mechanisms driving this opportunity gap and the overall growth of entrepreneurship among Latinos in the US. We also collect data on the alumni of the SLAY education program, which Mark Madrid reviewed with you all today, and we're learning from them and their personal experiences. In our survey of over 5,000 independent Latino business owners in 2017, we dig deep on the funding gaps facing Latino-owned businesses and their strategies for success. Since we do have such a large sample of Latino-owned businesses across the country, we can also look at what's happening in different regions in the country. In what follows, I'll be presenting key findings from the national survey and comparing this to California-based Latino entrepreneurs. So let's start by reviewing 4 key findings from the national survey. We collect a lot of data on the funding types Latino entrepreneurs use to grow their business. And we focus on external funding sources, as we know that these are key to helping a business scale. These include bank loans at both the local and national level, government funding, venture capital, angel investment, and a few others. What we're finding is that national banks are providing less loan funding to Latino-owned businesses relative to other funding types and other demographic groups. And in California, we find that compared to the national average, Latino-owned businesses are leveraging external funding of all types at lower numbers. Secondly, because we have such a large sample of Latino businesses, we can slice the data in a number of ways. This includes looking at female-owned businesses compared to men, immigrants versus native-born, millennials versus non-millennials, small versus large firms, which we define as unscaled and scaled, and a variety of regions. Among Latina-owned firms, we find that they're growing at a rapid rate. However, Latina entrepreneurs are facing a funding ceiling, which I'll get to in just a bit. Next, we're able to slice the data and look at immigrants, a topic of today's summit. In particular, millennial immigrants, who constitute a DACA comparable group. While we don't ask about immigration status in our survey, we can proxy this group. Our analysis reveals that millennial immigrants who came to the US as children are overrepresented among owners of businesses earning $1 million or more annually. Lastly, we consider strategies for success. We find that relative to other demographic groups, Latino entrepreneurs have the highest rate of business clients and customers outside of the US. Given this propensity to be global-minded, stakeholders like yourselves here today can develop best practices around international expansion. So let's now consider the key finding about national banks a bit more. In our survey, we ask about several types of external funding, so we're able to compare across funding types and different Latino profiles. So in this figure here, the x-axis On the x-axis, we have Latino profile groups by age, gender, nativity, and revenue. And on the y-axis, there on the left-hand side, we have the different Latino profile groups. We have on the y-axis the different funding sources from our survey. We find here that banks are accessed at very low rates to grow Latino businesses, although we do see greater use among local banks relative to national bank loans. We're also seeing higher use of lines of credit, including personal and business lines, which can come from banks. Among external funding types, we see the lowest rate of use with government funding. While not pictured here in California, we see lower rates among all external funding types when compared to the national average among Latino-owned businesses. The bottom line here is that Latino-owned firms are not being funded on average through traditional financial institutions. There are a lot of reasons why this might be. It may be that banks are not willing to take the risk on smaller firms, as we do see slightly higher use among scaled firms. On the other hand, some of this has to do with how prepared Latino business owners are in accessing external funds. In our survey, we asked about the materials that they had on hand for their business. And these materials are often required of them in order to access external funding. On average, about 1 out of every 3 Latino firms reported having the necessary materials. So this figure here shows you these materials and what Latino entrepreneurs have prepared. So let's look at business plans. And business plans are on the lower right-hand portion there of the screen. And the red portion of the circle represents scaled firms, and the blue represents unscaled firms. 36% of scaled firms have this financing material available, whereas only 20% of unskilled firms have it. Still, across the board, these are really low rates for all Latino firms, and that's probably why we see workshops tailored to these business outputs, as there's certainly a need for it. The California breakdown closely resembles this national breakdown, which indicates that this is a wide and shared experience among Latino businesses across the country. As previously mentioned, scaled firms, or those generating at least $1 million in annual revenue or more, serve as one benchmark of success. We consider an additional measure of success in our survey, and that's profit growth. 62% of Latino firms surveyed reported profit growth in the last 12 months, and in California, 68% of Latino firms are reporting profit growth. And we do know that among those firms that experience profit growth, they are more likely to have a national bank loan. This speaks to the remaining importance of institutional funding, as we see that other funding types, like hard money here at the top, is being accessed at relatively higher rates. And hard money is secured from private sources, and it's less regulated than formal business loans. Because hard money is easier to access, it may be more attractive for the business owner, despite higher interest rates. So shifting gears a little bit now, our survey sample, as I've mentioned to you, allows us to consider different profiles of Latino owners and the experiences that they faced growing their business. One such profile that we consider is that of the Latina entrepreneur, our next key finding. Latinas play an important role in creating new businesses, representing nearly half of the growth of all U.S. Latino-owned firms. This figure here shows you the growth of Latinas relative to other female demographic groups, and Latinas are highlighted in red. Between 2007 and 2012, the number of Latina-owned firms grew 87%. And between 2007 and 2005, Latina employer firms grew in number by 44%. While the growth rate in the number of Latina-owned firms remains healthy, they do tend to be smaller than male-owned firms. Among the 3% of scaled firms, 30% are owned by women. We know that Latinas are less represented in the construction industry, which makes up 4 in 10 of the scaled firms, and they're overrepresented in the other services industry classification as compared to male-owned firms. We hypothesize a couple of reasons why we have seen such a surge in Latina entrepreneurship. First, we know that Latinas are achieving higher education at a greater proportion compared to their male counterparts. We also know that there is a growing wage gap among Latinas. The average woman working full-time earns 80 cents on the dollar paid to men, and Latinas earn 54 cents on that dollar. What we're seeing in some of the interviews amongst Latinas is that they're often working hard, generating money for someone else, and not getting promoted, which may compel them to start their own business. Our survey findings show that despite their high levels of business creation, Latinas feel that they are not qualified to access funding from financial institutions at higher percentages when compared to men. So if we look at just those entrepreneurs that would like national bank loans, we uncover some of the barriers to accessing this type of funding, including not knowing how to get it, not having a relationship or contact, and not feeling qualified. We see the largest gap among small firms compared to scaled firms. 60% of unscaled firms feel they are not qualified. We see another gap among men and women, where 40% of women, and these are Latina women, feel that they're not qualified compared to 21% of men. We find that this gap holds among women even when compared to men of similarly sized firms. So it's not just because Latina firms are smaller that they feel less qualified. Thus, there may be a funding ceiling, either externally or self-imposed, that is preventing more Latinas from reaching their full business potential. Next, we consider the profile of immigrants compared to native-born Latinos. As previously mentioned, we look at millennial immigrants who came to the US before their 16th birthday to parallel a DACA comparable group. As the future of DACA is still unsettled, we find that among Latino entrepreneurs, a DACA comparable group is overrepresented among owners of immigrant businesses earning $1 million or more annually. That is, this group is likely to be scaled. More specifically, we find that 86% of immigrant scaled firms are owned by millennials who came before age 16, and 29% of all scaled firms are owned by immigrant millennials who came to the country before their 16th birthday. We hypothesize a few reasons why this might be. First, research has found that immigrants arrive with a sense of immigrant optimism that propels earlier generations to perform well in school and have high ambitions. We may also be seeing processes of psychological acculturation. And let's see here. Lastly, because the immigrants arrived as children, they developed during their formative years in the American school system, learning English, and many are also taking advantage of expanded opportunities in higher education. Taken together, these are likely to play a role in the success of young immigrant entrepreneurs. As a final structural note, which may be facilitating entrepreneurship, federal and state laws do not require proof of immigration status for an individual to start a business. So moving on here to our final key finding, we find that Latino entrepreneurs have the highest rate of business clients and customers outside the US relative to other racial and ethnic demographic groups. Among all Latino firms surveyed, we find that 9% have international clients and 28% have clients throughout the US. In California, 13% have international clients and 32% have customers outside the state of California. Last year, we reported that Latino businesses are located all over the United States, with more than 3/4 in non-Latino neighborhoods, serving mostly non-Latino customers. This next figure here shows your 2017 survey sample of over 5,000 independent Latino businesses plotted on a US map. This is merely a subset of Latino businesses, but this does show you that they're located in new entrepreneurial gateways across the country not commonly associated with entrepreneurship. We want to emphasize that while Latino firms of all sizes definitely cluster in Latino-dense states, California being one of them, we're increasingly seeing Latino firms and large ones established in the South and Midwest. So it's important to keep that in mind when we think of who Latino entrepreneurs are. So now I'm going to provide a few more California-specific statistics, as these help us understand the constituents of California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. California-based Latino-owned businesses are younger, have younger owners, and are more networked relative to Latino-owned businesses across the U.S. Many Latino entrepreneurs exhibit strong enterprising qualities, through their engaged networking behaviors, above average levels of education, and strong family histories of entrepreneurship. 1 out of every 3 Latino firms engage with a formal business institution, such as a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And in California, these rates are slightly higher than the national average. California businesses are also younger on average than Latino firms across the country, and California has a greater share of millennial entrepreneurs, 44% compared to 40% across the country. In our survey, we used the North American Industry Classification System to identify the industry distribution among Latino-owned businesses. When looking at just the scaled firms, so those are the firms generating at least $1 million in annual revenue or more, the top 3 industries are construction, professional, scientific, and technical services, and education/health services. And as you can see here in blue for California, professional services is overwhelmingly number 1. The top 3 industries among non-skilled firms, so these are those that are smaller, are professional services, other services, and education/health. Since professional services makes it on the top for both non-scaled and scaled businesses, this tells us that there's lots of opportunities to support scaling of these smaller businesses. So to conclude, you can view a summary of key statistics here. Despite lower levels of funding relative to other groups, Latino-owned businesses continue to grow in number, and we have reason for optimism. Between our 2016 and 2017 national survey, we saw the number of scaled Latino firms grow 1 percentage point. While small, it is in a positive direction. And another important factor to consider is that nearly half of US-born Latinos are younger than 18. We find great promise amongst Latino millennials in scaling their businesses, and California has a greater share of these business owners when compared to the national average. As the younger Latino population comes of age, we have great hope for the continued growth of Latino entrepreneurship here in California and in the continued impact it will have on the US economy. Lastly, if you haven't yet done so, we encourage you all to take a look at our 2017 State of Latino Entrepreneurship report to read more about the key findings that I've shared with you all here today and others that we were unable to cover. And you can also pick up our 1-page summary of California, which should be on the tables located out front if you didn't already pick it up. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, Mark, for the insights and all the wonderful work you all are doing at Alabama and over at Stanford. So we did want to do some Q&A here, guys. So you know the hashtag, what is it? CA Voice. Okay? So send your questions. All right? We're at eBay. We're in the heart of Silicon Valley technology. So let's try to use it. We want to use it and engage it and get some questions going. So what's Liz got? She's not hot. I mean, the mic's not hot.
I say we start the conversation by taking a group selfie. What do you guys think? Yes. Yes.
There we go. Let's do this. Get up, guys. I'll guess it out.
Okay, ready? Everybody smiling back there?
I sell on eBay, and I sell about roughly 1,500 items a month, and I automate a lot of the processes, meaning I don't want to send 1,500 invoices. I don't want to send 1,500 tracking updates, so when the item ships, it gets uploaded automatically. If the buyer hasn't paid, then I have automated, reminded, because all of these things were taking my time. I was spending all of, 6 hours a day just typing things. So now I focus on what, growing my company with my people, doing listings, taking pictures, doing the shipping, having fun of the other things. So I have an auto decline, which means, so I have a laptop that I was selling for like $470, and my auto decline was at 400. So automatically, anything that goes under, it gets declined. And so then I found out a day later that a guy had sent me an offer for $399 Of course I want to take that offer. I'm not going to let it skip for $1, right? But that was the automation saying, this is it, right? You don't cut it. So I emailed the guy back, which is really hard, trying to reach to somebody that way. And I say, hey, I'm so sorry, I tell him the whole story. I say, please send your offer. And I noticed that he worked for the military base in Japan, and I say, please send your offer at $375, I will accept it for you. He was so thrilled and so excited to say, I am so glad that there are still businesses out there that have real people and real answers. So it's really hard with these big companies, I don't want to say Amazon, but I said it. Try to get to somebody, you can't, right? So we cannot forget that as small businesses. And then the other thing that is not fun, and that's not how I want the small businesses to get to a point. I don't know, this is federal, no California, but try to get a hold on IRS, right? You can't. So that is so automated that is not working, right? So I was on the phone 2 weeks ago, or tried to get on the phone with IRS, and after pressing 9 buttons, if you want to go here, press 1, if you want to go here, an hour and 20 minutes later, I was so frustrated because I couldn't get a hold of nobody, and there is no chat with anybody, there is nothing. So I hang up, and I said, well, I'm going to go to the closest office, which is like an hour and a half from me. I went there, and the guy says, do you have an appointment? I said, no. Do you need one to, and I said, I just want to pay my taxes because I was buying a house. It was so complex because they didn't even have the forms for this year's, and my bank, my lender, they were asking for this year's taxes. So everything is so automated that it's actually getting very frustrating for people. So we have to find that sweet spot of where technology is going to take over people.
So that would never happen in California. I do want to, Assembly Member, again, kind of a tweak on the question, but where do you see some of the issues coming up in regards to technology and the state of California policy?
Well, there's a couple of different areas where we see it coming up more often than not. I think one is the piece that I referred to earlier, just in terms of regulation, for public safety, for worker safety, consumer protection. That's one area where we're seeing it come up, and we're trying to figure out how to reconcile it. And there's some aspects of that that have to do with just updating our current laws and regulations. We have some regulations that are on the books from how business was conducted in the 80s, and we have some of these newer companies, these tech companies coming to us and saying, wait a second, we're stuck with this old model of regulation that doesn't make sense anymore. One quick example is this past year, as I was serving on the Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee, there was a bill to update, to modernize some of the protections for dating services. And the bill or the regulations in place were put in the 1980s, because I guess in the 80s there were a lot of these shops that would open up that would advertise dating services, and they were brick and mortar, and they'd take all these applications in, and then they would just close up shop and jump town. And so the people would show up and say, where's my money? Where's none of the services were provided. So in the books, it requires when people are making complaints or want to terminate a service that there are a certain number of days that are required, like 30 days, and they have to have a street address. Well, obviously, the whole industry is very different now, where people are using apps, and the idea of having a physical address and the idea of having a 30-day termination, it just didn't make sense anymore. And so that's part of what we're doing, is trying to update our regulations. We're trying to put in place new regulations on newer technologies to ensure that people aren't taken advantage of, to make sure that the regulations make sense in terms of where the technology is going. But the other area has to do with the future of the workforce and what automation, the impact automation has on our ability to actually keep people employed. And so that's a conversation which is going to, again, continue in the years ahead. Look, I represent District 27. It's about half of San Jose. I have downtown San Jose, capital of Silicon Valley, the urban core of Silicon Valley. But I also have some of the poorest census tracts in the Bay Area as well. And I truly represent that tale of two valleys that we're hearing more and more about as people are struggling to find a place to live. People are struggling to survive. And so the future of the workforce is really relevant to these families. and to families and to kids that are going to school now. What are we doing in terms of making sure that, yes, we have automation to improve our quality of life, but that we also are cognizant of the jobs that we need going forward for our workforce as well. And that's another area that is starting more and more to really become front of mind in conversations and in policy discussions in Sacramento and throughout the state.
So Director Tom, working at the state of California, you see everything that's going on. So what do you see maybe some of the negatives that you can tell our small businesses they need to watch out for, look out for, what you see in regards to technology?
Yes, maybe again, I'll stick with the two, maybe possibly three example on the negative side of technology that not very helpful to just industry in general. Technology, aside from sometimes are lagging behind, I mean, there's actually there are cases where technology have failed. I'm sure you all recently have been following the Northern California fire, and then the Southern California fire, and then followed by a huge rain, and then there was a mudslide. I mean, California have gone through unprecedented, number of natural disasters, and in all of those three scenarios, there were, lives that were affected in a just never happened before. One thing that have failed, a consistent fail, was the communication system. And believe it or not, there was such a reliance on the wireless, the cell phone, in communicating with folks in case of emergency. And when there is actually an emergency, and in this case it was the Northern California fires, a lot of those towers got burned. So the communication wasn't available, and people have to fall back to, the fundamental, what do you call it, the landline? See, I had to think about what that phone was a telephone call, right? Landlines. And a lot of those lines got burned because the connectivity is underground. So the fire was so hot, it burned the wireless tower, it burned the line underground. So what happened? And this comes back to the human element. It does take the local, sheriff and emergency personnel to go door by door, to knock on people's door to let people get out. And lessons learned from there. Yeah, there was a lot of reliance, say when something happened, we could just use this public announcement system and let's just, inform folks. No, all those failed. So immediately, the administration are taking an action, looking for alternative ways of communicating with folks. And this is really into ways of saving people's lives, right? So from a small business perspective, those are the opportunity. In many cases, because the state of California is so big and each jurisdiction is so different, when you have a density area like in the city, yeah, the communication is one thing, one setting. When you move out to where the rural area, there's hardly any connectivity. So look for those opportunities where you can say to find that niche market. What can you do to augment what the state of California cannot reach out to? And we are looking for those local communities and local small business to step up to provide those opportunities to help the various community to be connected. So we don't treat them as a one-size-fits-all, in a way of helping the community in the public safety arena. So I know I will probably short in time, so I probably won't go into my other examples, but we can talk about other things.
Again, tweet your questions to hashtag CA Voice. We do want to take some questions from the audience, but this final question, and if you want to take it, you can. If you want to pass, you may. How can the Hispanic business community turn technology advancements into opportunities? Right? I know Director Tong has some comments there. But let's start with Renee. You want to take a stab at it?
Sure. So I am Lalon, but I'm also Garza. So I'm Hispanic, and I just want to say one of the things I think would be really important and something that we should do more of is maybe some language tools on the phone. There's some really cool inventive stuff that people have done in China. One example is a company called YoliChat, where they teach you conversational English, and so between Spanish and English, I think that would be a good one. I think getting more
involvement in the community. One of the things that I think is really important is we can't wait for the schools and everybody to get our children engaged in technology and also what's happening in the marketplace and teach them what a business plan is and all that good stuff. And one of the things we're doing is this thing called Girls Leadership Academy Meetup, and we do it every year, and it's free, and it's for girls 8 to 12, and we try to get girls from the community, and somos males. We take some people that they can't pick for us, as well as foster girls, and we teach them what a business plan is. We teach them how to pitch that, and Margaret Sanchez is here today, and she's actually the one that leads that for us, but getting more involvement in the community and helping us train that next generation, I think, is important as well.
Okay. Who else? Who wants to?
Hi. Yeah, I'll just say briefly, I was reading, I think yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, there was an advertisement that Latino purchasing power and all the business activity is greater than the whole country of India. And so I would just say, I think a big opportunity, because we understand the culture, we understand language, is opportunities within the Latino community to offer products and services. Sometimes those will leverage new tech innovation, sometimes those will be very relationship-based or design or the human element-based. But I think that's a huge opportunity that everyone here should be thinking about, is how can you tailor your products and services to our growing Latino market.
If I can follow up on that exact point, focus on depth versus breadth. You're never going to be able to compete. I mean, look, everyone knows the number. Everyone that's in business, especially large corporations, they know the numbers. But, and so their message is spread out, and they're able to hit way more people than a small business will be able to hit with their message. But their message is not always on point. I think you can really get into the depth. Don't worry about hitting as many people, but actually get a message that resonates with people. That's something I think that as small businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses, you can do better than the big companies. As much as they have market share, they'll have resources. That's how you separate yourselves, is the depth, and as was mentioned earlier, that customer service. Giving the culturally sensitive, culturally tailored customer service that you can do better than anyone.
Angie, do you have something?
Yeah, just something really quick. They talk the technology because they're the smart ones. But from the Hispanic side, from the women's side, number one with technology, embrace it. It's just like kids. You have to make sacrifices and changes, but you have to live with it. It's not going anywhere. So might as well just deal with it. But so embrace technology and look for mentors, look for resources. The resources out there, you guys just have to be resourceful, because there's a lot of information out there that can help you be successful. And just put yourself out there. Don't be nervous. We were all nervous at one point to whatever it is that we were going to do. So we all sweated. We all were nervous to ask somebody something. Can I ask you for this? Or that person knows the answer, but oh my God, what do I do? So just don't worry, because we all went through that. And believe in yourself, because even if you have the technology and the money and everything else, if you do not believe in yourself, there's no way you're going anywhere. Because I came to this country 15 years ago as an au pair, taking care of babies. And then little did I know that 15 years later, I was gonna be here talking to you guys. I was able to, create a company, hire 13 people, and have all of these things. And I was invited to the White House last year to advocate for small businesses and people like you, and trying to make our, rights and voice. So please go ahead and do what you love, find your niche, find your passion, and just go and get it. There is a lot of stuff out there to do.
I purposely left the rest of the comments to the end on this question, if you noticed. We do a lot of work with Department of General Services. A lot of work is coming up in technology. We've had a discussion with Director Tong, and she's very committed to engaging and making sure that we get out throughout the state of California the opportunities that the state of California, the contracting opportunities. So I know that's what she's going to speak on. So
yes.
Go on,
Thank you. And to follow what Angie's, I do really encourage The state of California does not have enough small business partner. Really, we do not have enough small business partner. And we're in desperate needs to recruit more small business partner. And the small business partner in this case is not just a small business that provide technology assistance, not at all. We absolutely need that. We need small business partner in all area. I mean, earlier I think one of the presenters talked about the segment, the construction is huge, professional services and healthcare services, all of those areas we need small business partner. So if nothing that you remember out of what I've been sharing with you today, remember this URL. Just look for e-procurement at State of California. It's just procurement with the letter E in front of it, so it sounds cool, so it's electronic procurement. Basically, all it does is provides a small business partner an opportunity to register your business with the state of California. And yes, the steps of becoming eligible to becoming a partner could be cumbersome, but that's where the partnership comes in. I think we're literally talking about having additional workshop with the Chamber of Commerce at a various location to help the small business partners to how to, get yourself eligible to become a state contracting partner. That's step number one, getting the eligible, just to make sure that everything is ready. Number two, now that you become available, how do you obtain a contract? And this is where the networking opportunity comes in. And as you can imagine, every day we get thousands of emails, literally, I get thousands of emails of business, trying to introduce themselves to the state of California. I run the technology part. I have a counterpart that runs human resources. I have a counterpart that runs finance. I have a counterpart that runs, general services. All of these directory gets a lot of contact by the small business. But, in fairness, a lot of those cold call doesn't really work because we don't know, what that company is all about and their reputation and this and that. And that's why having a network opportunity, having forums so that we can actually meet the small business owners in person, get to know your business, get to know what you have, done and what are the lessons that you have learned. It brings us that much closer to understand your business and therefore direct you to the various opportunity, to be obtaining contract. And that's a key element in how do you obtain contract. Talk about the buying power of the state of California. I mean, literally, we need a lot of help. We need a lot of help. And this is not something that we just, the state employee will be able to deliver by ourselves. So there's like millions of dollars that are looking for small business partners to come in and help us to make those services available to the California. So please take whatever you can do to sign yourself up, become eligible, and join the workshop so that you can, begin that venture with us.
I'm going to take a question to ask, but to close out Director Tom's comments. This is why you all need to be in Sacramento on May 16th. Because this year, during our what is traditionally our legislative day, we will be having a state procurement track. And we will have all the state agencies, many of the state agencies there, including Department of Technology, there looking for companies to do business with. So if you're looking at contracting with the state, you need to be in Sacramento on May 16th. You can go to www.chcc.com and register, or you can just talk to one of the staff members and they'll take care of you. So real quick, and guys, 30 seconds, okay? What's one of the hot trends you have observed in the tech industry? James? What's one of the hottest trends?
Well, so I think a really cool trend is if you have a startup business that you want to sell online, a trend is how do you, businesses that are serving those companies. So like, Shopify, you can get your online merchant up very quickly. You can start taking transactions. You look at Square, you can get, they've got over 1 million merchants and small businesses where you can, they can help you swipe people's credit cards, and now they're lending, Square's lending capital based on that data. So those are all trends. How do you serve the small business community like Shopify, like Square? I think those are good opportunities.
Great. Assembly member?
Well, pertinent to my line of work, I think a hot trend, which I think is a great trend, is digital democracy. We're seeing so many different ways in which people are able to connect with us, to empower one another. We're seeing it coming up soon with the March for Our Lives, with young people engaging in democracy and using technology to do it in a way that we've never seen before. And so I think that's a very positive trend in technology.
And for me, State of California is really here to protect consumer privacy and consumer asset. So for us, cybersecurity and privacy protection is huge, and we do need a lot of a workforce continue on that effort so that we can, best provide the best protection.
Renee?
Some of the exciting things are happening, and I'll try to mention something. I thought you might talk about cryptocurrency, but everybody wants to talk about that. But one of the things I think is really important, exciting is the artificial intelligence and bots and all the things that we're doing to kind of get rid of some of that really low-lying stuff, but also keep the people, the humans, in the high touch. And that, I think, is really exciting. And the possibilities are endless with the big data and with the algorithms and with all the stuff that you can learn from buying trends and all that stuff. So.
A little bit with your line is also how now, as a seller, so now before you used to type everything, all of a sudden now we can press the micro and talk and it will be spelled for us. And then now is you can scan an image and then it will read it for you and give you all the information about it. So that's where we're going. And technology is just moving super fast to make us all of our lives easier sometimes.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Please, a round of applause. So we will take another short 5-minute break. They're going to reset, and we'll have immigration, I think, which is, again, a very important topic to our members. And again, thank you to the members.
Get a picture of them together?
Yeah, we're going to tell them right now.
Maybe he's
Look at
done.
that. Last time we got
It's okay.
Tiffany from PG&E recommended that I
Standing up on that chair. It's all about the gosh, it made all the difference because at first it was like very subtle, but that was it right there. That was great. Devil's in the details, baby. Got fresh stats. Oh man. He's up there killing it. So I'm up there, I was like, oh man. Here's that, You might have to go eat it now. So we got tacos. Hey, what I want to make sure, this is Mitch. So he handles So you're with the camera. He does our film. Yeah. So that was well, no, they're contracted. So they're making. So I used to work at Jules at St. Asian Chamber. But one of the problems we have is we don't have footage.
raw B-roll, as we call it, do videos and all that. All them.
Right.
But one thing we've been trying to do is try to interview you when we're in Legislature.
Yeah, so Legislature will be up
former
there.
chairs.
So could you all like moderate?
So if they pull you aside, you know who
Yeah.
the fight.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll have it down here. All right, awesome. Okay, perfect.
and move forward so that we can go to the reception here and network more and talk. Move out of the picture.
Water. Not supposed to do that. I'll send it to you. You at work. Yeah, working hard. Always. Always. I work with well, I'm in Sacramento Bench. I'm in the headquarters. Yes. So hopefully we will meet you. And September, October, we have to let us know how to help. Do you have a
Ladies and gentlemen, if we can take our seats, we're going to get going here on the last panel about immigration. Thank you.
Cheers.
Well, everybody, we'll get you back in and take your seats. And I know you guys need the rest of those cookies over there. I don't want them. So, big topic, immigration. So, I was in Washington, D.C. this last week, and again, still a big topic, still at the forefront. It's something that we have to solve, right, Congresswoman? She's shaking her head, and we have to find solutions. That's why we're here today. Immigration has been a heated issue of debate at all levels in this go around, right? Both at the federal level and now here in California. The new federal administration has made significant moves and taken actions on immigration policies affecting individuals and creating a high level of uncertainty for businesses and the economy of California. As the 6th largest economy in the world, it is important to comprehend the impact of immigration to our economy, and to facilitate solution-driven discussions that can result in legislative and policy remedies at both here at the state level and the federal level. Our panelists today will engage in a discussion of a comprehensive discussion and analysis on the immigration issues in California and the nation, its impact to the economy, and possible solutions to address the current political climate. So, and we're really, excited about the panel that we have here. First, let me start with Susana Sandoval. Met her in Chicago about a month ago. Yeah, we were all in Chicago a month ago. She's from Chicago. She hails from a 30-year family-owned media business in entertainment and news in the United States. Utilizing her nonprofit organizational community development background, she continues to serve the community as an organizer in the civil rights arena. She was a recent U.S. Senate candidate in Illinois, and she works on building coalitions for basic human rights in education, healthcare, food security, and religious freedom. But she'll be bringing a lot of key information in regards to the impact, the economic impact that a negative immigration policy would have on California and the nation. The Honorable Zoe Lofton. So please. And we thank you for being here, because as you know, any congressperson is very busy. And so we thank her for taking the time. But Congresswoman Lofgren has been a member of the U.S. House of Representatives since 1995. She represents the 19th District here in California, which is based here in the capital, Silicon Valley. Excuse me. She is the highest ranking Democrat and the former chair of the Subcommittee on Immigration and Border Security. So very appropriate to have her there, so we're excited about Zoe's experience. Mark Ranneberger, did I say that right, Mark? And actually Mark and his team, we've been on the phone back and forth for about 6 months on this issue. But he is the Northern California Director for Ford US. And if you haven't seen what they have, please, they're an enormous resource. FWD.us, correct? On different concepts of where we need to go on immigration. He leads the outreach and engagement with the tech community and elected officials to drive bipartisan support for a common sense immigration reform. So Mark, again, has some valuable information, but again, the website is very valuable. The Honorable Juan Manuel Calderon Javis, Consul General of Mexico here in San Jose. He serves the counties of Santa Clara, San Benito, Santa Cruz, and Monterey. He has also served in the consulates of Mexico in Seattle, Washington, San Bernardino, California, Miami, Chicago, Tucson, and the Mexico Embassy in Venezuela. So a very well concept of not just California, but the entire United States. So thank you for being here today, Consul General. And finally, we thought it was important to have a real business owner up here, right? So Adolfo Gomez. So he's the owner of Mezcal Mexican Restaurant and Bar here in San Jose, downtown San Jose. And thank you. We were at his restaurant last night. Wonderful food. So I definitely suggest it. He moved to San Jose from Oaxaca, Mexico, 20 years ago, right? And he used to serve as the operations manager at the Silicon Valley Capital Club for about 10 years before opening up Mezcal 5 years ago. So welcome and thank you. And if you haven't been to his restaurant, get the address, you need to go, okay? So let's get right into it. So why don't we start with the Congresswoman, right? How do you see immigration impacting business and industry here in California?
Is this on? Yeah.
It's on.
Well, immigrants are absolutely vital to the state of California. We have more than 10 million Californians who are born in another country, and they play a huge role. Everything from high-tech to agriculture, small business, construction, engineering, you name it. As we've all noticed, the state of California is at odds with the Trump administration on immigration. And I think we're enormously concerned here in the state, and really in the United States, that the Trump administration's new enforcement-only efforts, the continued unwillingness to reform the laws so they will actually work for families and for the economy are very threatening. And I've heard from so many business people, most recently last week, ag folks who are generally pretty conservative, just saying, we can't live with this. I mean, we cannot live with this. And I wasn't able to give them any hope because the thing that's being promoted on the majority side is a bill that would, for ag, require the existing farm workers to step forward and leave the country and then have the opportunity to come back temporarily. That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to do that, especially when you know that a majority of the farm workers who are undocumented have been here more than 10 years. A majority have U.S. citizen children, in some cases grandchildren. I mean, these are folks who are Americans at this point in every way except the paperwork. So that's the scene that we have.
Let me give us a little perspective of how you see these immigration policies and lack of impacting, business.
So I decided to wear a cowboy hat. I think it's pretty significant. I'm not from Texas, I'm from Chicago, but it's the Wild West right now in our country, in our nation. And I'm the granddaughter of migrant farm workers who migrated up. We migrated up from Mexico into California. Actually, my grandparents picked crops here in the valley and then moved with the seasons across the country. That's important to share because each of us have a story that can be similar to sacrifices that our families have made, and I think the Congresswoman has made a deliberate point of saying that we are all struggling, and the fact that this is the 6th largest economy, you have everything that we have in the rest of the country here in California, and you are basically an epicenter for agriculture. My family knew that when they came and they were willing to put their hands in dirt, and my grandfather was a grafter, which is someone who creates hybrid plants. And as we work the terrain, people have adjusted, they've adapted to the government regulations, starting even from the Chinese Inclusion Act, which was like 1820s or so. And many populations have been a cheap labor force for our entire society. And the current plan is disastrous. It is a plan that negates the history of that value of the labor in this country. And we should all be appalled by it. Why more so for California? Because Michigan is affected as much because it has an agricultural sector, but California is responsible for the majority of our fresh fruits and vegetables. And so, without that, our health and our nutrition and our education and even our workforce is all rolled up into immigration reform. And so I've been working in many different capacities. I grew up in a family business of media, working in a neutral fashion with government to help give information. My background is in nonprofits. I have an association chamber background. I created a diversity workforce partnership of 63 associations. When Congresswoman was advocating for the H-1B visas, I was advocating for it in the association chamber sector with those 63 associations. So the Valley and the work that takes place in the partnership between nonprofits and also in the private, in the corporate sector, and diversity initiatives, et cetera, is very important to the changing what immigration reform looks like. We cannot continue and compete globally where we are right now. We can't afford to. Our children are already behind in education, and our workforce is suffering. Not to mention, everyone says, well, we need to do it for the right reason. The right reason is an economic reason. The right reason is because we can change our history. I'll just continue to let everyone go.
So, Adolfo, you're in a business that we all know depends a lot on immigrant workers. So please, how are what you're hearing and the policies you're hearing about and learning about and the actions that have been taken, how are they affecting your business, the bottom line?
This is on, right? Okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the invitation. Mimi, somewhere here, she convinced me to do it. Two reasons why I did it, and one of the reasons was because I'm really a small business. I'm a window business, I'm a ground floor business, and a lot of times we don't have time to speak. And when I say it's not that we don't want to, it's just no time. So I say yes. Second, I want to ask a question to the audience so you understand really what is the fear and the pain that we're going through and refer the worker or the workforce or our employees or our friends. So that was the second reason why I did it. And the third thing I did is I asked Jo Lerma Lopez is somewhere over there. She's the owner of Luna Restaurant. Because we have our own group of restaurateurs and entertainment people that we depend on that work. So the question I have for the audience is, how many people here is first generation born? In the United States? Like you're not foreign, you don't come from other countries, so you don't work. Who is second generation? So you raise the hand. So the majority here, they're like me. I came when I was 18, and really the people who are first and second generations, you depend on your grandfather and your grandmother and your mom and your dad, and most likely when they came here, they don't have any skills. So the jobs that were taken is either going to the fields or trying to get to a restaurant where they can do dishwashing or learn how to cook, and that's the way they put the families together. And hopefully they give you a chance for you to go to a formal education. So right now, with everything is going with the Trump administration, is we affecting that foundation. Because right now, those people, those employees, they're working for us. Right now, they don't know there's a future. They worry about it. Give an example. One of my guys, his car broke down, and I asked him, do you buy a new car? And he goes, why I should spend money when I don't know how long I'm going to be here? Why I should thinking about buy a house if I don't know if I'm going to be here in 6 months? So it's a lot of fear in that sense, and that's going to start reflecting in our economy that people are stopping insurance because they maybe get picked up tomorrow. I don't know. As a business owners, we see that every day. We see the fear. We see that they don't go out. They don't go public places. They maybe send the kids to the theaters because the kids born here, and they save, but they are not. So that's going to be a domino effect that is going to stop. I'm in the entertainment. I entertain people. I like them to get good food and have fun, and I do events. Well, a lot of those things are going to stop because people are going to save money because they're not sure what's happening. And I think I've been here about 25 years, and I think it's really the first time that when people ask me, is really the American dream happening? And I'll say no, not right now.
Council General, maybe give your perspective of how you see the current situation in regards to immigration affecting California business.
Well, buenas tardes a todos. I hope that... Who speaks Spanish? Todos. You know, we are between 35 million people, Mexican, first, second generation, and people come from my country. Many people speak Spanish here. Just let me give you some statistics. Mexico is in the United States the second largest sport market. 16% of US core-wide sports go to Mexico, reaching 231 billion in 2016. 31 US states export over 1 billion to Mexico, Texas, California, Michigan, Arizona, Illinois, Ohio, and Louisiana export over the 5 billion US dollars. Mexico is the largest export market for California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska. With these numbers, do you think that economy in California is going to impact? Para Mexico, let me say, for Mexico, it's very important California. California is this, I think it's the sixth economic largest in the world. We have a very good relationship with California, with everything. We have in this area, in Silicon Valley, a quality Mexican citizen that they work in this new technology. But we have people in Salinas, California. They work very hard with the agriculture. I was last week there. Many people is very concerned. What's going on? What's going to happen with the people that they work hard, very hard? They hard workers. They start at 4, 5 o'clock, and then they finish 8, 9 p.m. What is going to impact the economy in California? I think in America, California is a state very friendly for the Mexican, but federal is no, it's very hard to explain to you that don't try to say that it's very political situation. We understand, but the present Mexican citizen in California or around the United States, we're talking about 6 million people, undocumented people that they work in Washington, in California, in Arizona, Chicago, Florida. I think we are going to have a Mexican hero, Hispanic people.
Thank you. Mark, Ford US has done a lot of research and a lot of information out there about the impacts. Why don't you share some of that with us? What you guys see the economic impact on California business?
Yeah, well, first, thanks to the California Hispanic Chamber for having me. You all have been terrific partners, as you said, over the last 6 months, and also to the Congresswoman who's done just a tremendous amount, and she's been a long-standing champion on this issue. So I think it's very fitting that we're here at eBay, immigrant-founded, Pierre Omidyar, Qualcomm, Yahoo, Tesla, Google, I mean, you name them, right? All of them have immigrant founders. And I think people forget that, of the Fortune 500, 45% of those companies are either immigrant-founded or are founded by the children of immigrants. That's the equivalent of, about $600 billion and almost 1 million people employed globally. So without immigrants, the high-tech industry, all of these iconic companies that, many use their services, I'm sure, they would simply not exist. So immigration, whether it's in the high-skilled space, the low-skilled space, or in between, has been an essential element to what makes California the 6th largest economy in the world. And I'll tell you, I was just in Central Valley. I just did a roundtable in Fresno with the Fresno Chamber down there, as well as Wells Fargo, a number of other businesses, and they're concerned in places like that as well, because in many cases, a lot of these businesses have spent large amounts of money, training, educating, hiring immigrant workers. The last 6 months or so, my organization has spent a lot of time focusing on the issue of DACA and Dreamers, and out there in the 3 congressional districts that represent that region, there's more than 20,000 of those people who are working, contributing $1 billion, to the local GDP. That's huge. That's enormous. And we talked a little bit about the migrant workforce. There's more than 125,000 who are powering a $60 billion agricultural industry in the Central Valley. And I think to their credit, the members out there like Congressman Valadeo, Congressman Denham really get this issue. I just wish more members in Congress really understood what the impact is out here. So from our perspective, as a bipartisan organization, I view our role as really trying to partner with business voices, all of you out there. I encourage you to get involved with our work, folks in the tech community space, to really try to make Washington understand that, this is not a joke, this is not a game. And if you really want to talk about creating jobs and growing the economy, immigration is the #1 place that you need to start. When they were doing the 2013 comprehensive bill, it was estimated that getting that passed would create $5 trillion in value. $5 trillion, right? That's a lot of zeros. That's a lot of zeros. I hope Washington will begin to realize that this is really a huge opportunity and an absolute economic imperative for the state of California.
So Mark mentioned some huge numbers, right, that we need to protect and continue to grow our businesses here in California. So I guess, especially for Susanna, we'll start with you. So what can our business owners, and lately they've been put in the middle of a little issue between the feds and our authorities here. What can our business owners and the public do to help facilitate movement and hopefully a positive policies in regards to immigration?
So I mentioned the Diversity Workforce Partnership that I helped create in regards to the tech sector. I'm grateful to Forward.us because actually I've partnered with, I don't think Mark knows this, but I know his counterparts nationally working with other people. But this is a good beginning. I mean, we have all the tools that we need here in this room today. By that, we have representatives of government, both from Mexico and also from the US side. We have people who have perhaps at stake. I mean, I'm a former restaurant jazz club owner two times over in Chicago. So I know how difficult it is to manage in that industry a secure workforce that is constant and to manage the expenses of your business. We need dialogue and we need action. The dialogue that needs to happen is actually that the businesses that are most affected, for instance, the California Restaurant Association. I have an association chamber background, so I had a chat with them this week. They have already put out information, but yet they still have yet to have a conversation with this entity, with all of you, correct? And I said, those are great things that you're doing, but no one knows about it. Like the people that you really need to be talking to, the business owners, the ones that perhaps are restaurant owners, you need to come out of the silos that we're all working in, and we need to find those partnership opportunities. So that's an opportunity. I know Adolfo mentioned that you had a restaurant group. That's an opportunity for those restaurant group members as a part of this chamber to collaborate somehow with the opportunities that association has. What we have done in the past is to try to educate people, at least from I'm an organizer, so from an organizing standpoint, we try to give out narratives so that the media, and I grew up in the media, and I'm critical of the media as well, to change that narrative, people have to see faces, human beings, the restaurant owners. And I think that California is ripe for examples like Adolfo and other entrepreneurs that not only have given to the economy, but also have inspired other people to continue on and into their industry. In Illinois, we have formulated the Illinois Immigrant Business Coalition, which was a separate entity outside of chambers and associations. So those are organizations that came together across industries in order to advocate for the needs for those things. I actually think it could be housed within your association. I don't think it necessarily has to be a separate entity, but it's something that an initiative that you all could have. And those are opportunities. We also started something called the Restaurant Opportunity Center, which protects the workers within the restaurant industry. So it's more on the workforce side. And so it's not just Illinois that has these examples, but Michigan has the examples of what they've had to do that have similar agricultural opportunities. People need to realize that it may not be affecting you now, but in the end it is affecting all of us. I mean, at the ultimate end of things, whether you have an undocumented family or you have a blended family where it's mixed status, many people have been working for decades on this issue. In a recent meeting, I think you all are doing a fantastic job with having legislators come in, and that legislative conference is extremely important. People need to hear what your needs are. Legislators understand that there are needs, but until they're very specifically told to them, they don't know that you don't have access to financing. You have the current state treasurer right now, the way that he got you out of the red is incredible. I mean, I chatted with him and said, can you talk to Illinois? Because it took us several years to get a budget, right? And so, I mean, the reality is we're siloed and we need to break through our own barriers within our communities. Female business owners, Latinas, we have to talk to each other. Many of our sisters, and now with all the YouTube, yes, sexual harassment is important, but it's as important as access to financing. Access to the tools that you need as a business owner. Same, it's just an opportunity to talk about it and build narratives around some of your members and make those connections face to face with the legislators, because those are the opportunities that exist in this room right now.
Okay. Thank you, Susanna. Adolfo, you're doing things, you're doing stuff within your industry. So just maybe quickly, how can other business owners help with the issue and work towards a positive solution?
So I think one of the most important things is what we're doing right now. You need to attend these type of events. If you're not part of your Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, be part of something. Be part of the downtown associations if you're in downtown. Help to spread the word. A lot of times things start from small communities. We don't want to go to the office, Congress, and talk to you about it, but we want to make sure that the people you're talking to have the same voice. Mimi's going to go tell me that, and I need to be part of the Chamber of Commerce now, so I'm signed up. But I've been part of the community in downtown. I've been part of the community in San Jose. You need to get involved in other groups. You need to be part of nonprofits. That's giving back to the community, so you understand how the issues are happening. You have a voice. But I think one of the things that they say, we need to talk more. We need to exchange information and see how really we can push for immigration reform, because I think the only solution for the country is an immigration reform. We don't have anything happen since the 80s, 86, 85, and that's where the booming happened. And if they give legal documentation to all these people, we can become #1 economy in the world, not just the 6th, but we need that.
Thank you. Let's skip over to Mark real quick. Mark, where do you guys would like to see our Latino Hispanic businesses engaged in regards to this issue and trying to push for a positive solutions to the issue.
Yeah, well, I think some of this has already been addressed, but the more that you're able to speak out, I know this is a really sort of challenging time and challenging issue given perhaps the status of many of your workers and where your business might be located and the interests you may have in either in California or different parts of the country. But the more you're able to speak out, to highlight some of these stories, and engage in direct advocacy, so it's wonderful, obviously, to attend events like this and engage with members here and other folks in the business community. But the members need to hear directly from you all. And I'm sure the Congressman will tell you this, but there's nothing more that they hate than those phone calls, coming into their offices. So as much as you can drive those phone calls, from your employees, from people in the community, you make those phone calls directly as someone who is a business owner, who is a taxpaying constituent, who has a lot of influence within the community, are all tremendously important. And then beyond that, I would say, as much as you can do to also spread the word about the positive impacts that, the employees that are working for you, the contributions that they're making, how integral they are to your business succeeding. One of the narratives that we found really powerful is highlighting how, without that immigrant workforce, without these key people in your business, we would not be able to succeed. Right? If you take these people away, if you don't, give them ultimately a pathway forward, then we're not going to be able to function, right, to provide our services, which many people in the community may be consumers of. So those are all ways, I would say, to get engaged and to be helpful in this fight. And, plug for Forward.us, if you want to get directly involved in our work. As I said, we've got a coalition for the American dream that's been doing a lot of work around DACA and Dreamers. We also do a lot of work around high-skilled immigration as well, directly here in California, but also in Washington.
Great, thank you, Mark. Congresswoman, how can we help you?
Well, it's not helping me, it's helping yourself. I really think, this is a nonpartisan event, but it would be dishonest not to say that there's a partisan divide on this issue. Mark mentioned the bipartisan bill that was passed through the Senate. It wasn't a perfect bill, but it did reform the whole immigration system. Every single Democrat in the House co-sponsored it on the House side, and we had a handful of Republicans that also co-sponsored. We couldn't get a single Republican to sign the petition to put it on the floor. We knew we had the votes, because we did a count, to pass it. And the Speaker refused to put it up for a vote, and it died at the end of the Congress. So, in a situation, where you have somewhere between 70 and 80% of the American public think that we ought to reform the immigration law, that people who are here who are undocumented, who've not committed other offenses, ought to become permanent residents, that the DACA students ought to become permanent residents, and the Congress refuses to act, that's a political problem. That's a political problem, and it's a congressional problem. Because the state of California has done what they can to try and protect the people who live here, and I give them credit for that. But the only political entity that can actually change the immigration laws is the U.S. Congress and the President of the United States. And so I think the answer is vote and hold people accountable, not for what they say, but for what they do. And I will say, it's not 100%. There's a handful of Democrats, maybe don't like immigration reform. There's a handful of Republicans that say they do. But we can't put up with this nonsense anymore. We have an election coming up and another one 2 years after that. We got to change this. I go out to schools. I was out to a school on Friday, and these kids, some of them were DACA kids, they're terrified. There are children who are hurting themselves, who are cutting themselves. There are kids. I have a friend whose brother is a priest, a DACA student in his parish committed suicide because he had no hope for his future. We've got industries that can't perform because their immigrant workforce is being pushed out. We need to stand up and say, enough of this. I can't do it, you can.
And please, if you have questions, tweet them to hashtag CA Voice. Hashtag CA Voice. Council General, I'm going to change the question a little bit on you. I guess the question would be is if the United States does not come up with a solution that's positive, where do you see the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico? that wasn't in the prepared question, so he's very knowledgeable.
Well, sure, it's correct. But you know, I think we have to share the responsibilities between the Mexican government and the Mexican United States. It's a reality today. My people in the United States are very scared, especially in Northern California. You know, last days, many people very scared because they thinking about it, the president or ICE. We have to share the responsibility, both countries. We have in California 10 Mexican consulates. We work very hard with congressmen, we work with the mayor's office, good political, good community organizations, to try to explain to my people what happened in this specific case. California, for me, is something very friendly state for foreign people, undocumented people. Let me say that in California, we have about 2.5 million undocumented people in California. The majority are Mexicans. But these undocumented people, according to the Institute of Taxation Economic Policy, those people contribute $1 billion in local taxes and state taxes. What happened with this force that they work in the agriculture if they have to be deported to Mexico? We have more than 1.5 million DACA, the dreamers. They are very young people, very hard. I think they speak more English than Spanish. Yeah, I think they speak better English than me. But I think we have to share the responsibility between the United States and Mexico. But in this moment, for this political situation in the United States, it's very hard to have a solution.
Thank you. Well, we understand the impact of immigration on California's economy, everything from the small business owner up to companies like eBay. That's important that we have this reform moving forward. What I want to do is go to some questions from the audience. So, let's see. Where's Julian? Julian Munoz. He's over there. Where are you from, Julian?
From Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. We got people from all over. So his question is, we have sanctuary communities in California. Why not provide immigrant employees with an opportunity to prosper through payroll tax reform? Congresswoman, you want to take a stab at that first?
Well, I'm not sure what the payroll tax reform would be that you're talking about, but we can't get Congress to do anything. I mean, Mark was mentioning a bill, it's a tiny little bill that I worked on. It was bipartisan. It passed the Judiciary Committee unanimously by a voice vote to do some reform on the H-1B program. We can't even get it put up for a vote on the floor. So we specialize in doing nothing at this point. And your Congressman Beto O'Rourke is a wonderful guy. He has really worked hard. But I'm open to doing anything that makes sense if we can just get some action.
Everyone, Mark, do you want to comment, or Susanna?
So I'm a little more hopeful. The last time I saw Congresswoman Laughlin was in DC. I spent 2 years fasting. So Fast for Families campaign through 75 congressional districts. When I saw her, it was 100 women fasting in 48-hour fast in DC. We were camped out on the National Mall. It took 10 women to fast in front of President Obama's White House and the administration in order to get DACA. It was one of 3 executive orders that were under discussion that were presented to him. He only did 1. And we knew that it was going to go into the Supreme Court system and deal with another 2 years. And we still, the same group of women went back. So again, we can look at what hasn't happened, or we can actually roll our sleeves up and actually say, this is what our community needs. And this is enough. When we talked with the associations, I called up the Association of American Universities and Colleges, and I said, you have undocumented students on your campus. What are you doing to protect your consumer? Because in that situation, and I worked for a university, I worked for my alma mater, you have to realize that they're your bread and butter. So if you're not protecting them, then what is the purpose of your business? Is it just transactional? Is institutional? Is that what this country is about? Again, it has to do with our history. I just spent time at the border. I've spent time in Tijuana working with deported veterans. We have close to 3,000 deported veterans in Tijuana. We built a deported veterans house in order to build support. I personally have gone to talk with Mexican congressional members in Mexico. I've done TV shows in Mexico in order to advocate for those people. There are tools that we have. We have to understand, we do an exercise called power mapping. I said, in this room, there's a lot of power. We just haven't really enacted what that is. If you know so-and-so, know so-and-so, we have to speak out. We had a closed-door meeting with ICE, over 150 pastors from major denominations, some international, some more domestically in the US, with ICE. When they started doing deportation raids, that's when we helped build a coalition. And in that room, the woman who's been in the DC office has been there since 1986, since the amnesty was passed. And she admitted that she has witnessed an administrative failure. They had just hired 200 caseworkers to deal with the backlog, and there were still people going through those cracks. Everybody has a status. Right now, the dreamers, they're not waiting for us to do something for them. I talked to some of their leadership and I asked them, what could I ask this group to do on your behalf? You've already done it. You've done letters. You've actually talked to your legislators. They're not going to wait and have their lives in somebody else's hands. But there's something that you could do. That phone call, that letter, that email, talking, again, knowing who's in the room, those restaurateurs or other business owners that are affected. It's very important that people understand. Yes, the Congress is at odds right now. It's been that way for a long time around immigration reform. I know it, the Congresswoman knows it. There are people that are willing to meet in the middle. I still believe that because I'm still talking to people in DC. The current bill we have is terrible. Why? Because it asks people to leave the country. And years ago, I took a delegation of women to fight for the money that we stole, the braceros, for the last temporary workers program. So how can we talk about another temporary workers program when we still haven't paid? And I say we because I'm born and raised in the U.S., but I still care about the fact that we have abused our privilege as Americans and disrespected the other part of North America. And Chuco has a lot more complexities because of the cartels and the security. But we have to know what the history is in each point of the borders. Thankfully, the congressional members went down finally to do visits because many of them were just seeing numbers on papers, budgets. But they had never really gone through the process to actually see that. People don't, unless you have to go through that process, you don't know how long the paperwork takes, how long that litigation takes in a court. But there's different ways to help people get status. We cannot keep pretending that this is as it keeps going on, it's gonna get worse. We're gonna live in a military state, and all of us will get removed at one point or another. I know that because I spent 3 months in Standing Rock when I didn't win my election because I knew that there were other issues that were going to be complicated because there was militaristic behavior happening. And it's happening again. And the reality is that we all are responsible with what happens, whether you have a document or you don't have a document. People's public safety, number one. We're so worried about a border when our children are shooting schools up with monies that are in our political system. What value system do we have? California has a major role to play. I feel very honored to be included in this discussion because I know my family's history and my family is here. I have family here. My grandparents were here. My father was born in Summit Lake, Minnesota. He didn't end up there by accident. He went there because of an economic opportunity to work in the steel mills. But he grew up in a field. Our people are resilient. We will make do and we will create opportunities not just for ourselves but for other people. But when are we going to actually give status to that?
I think this audience question is for you. What is your message to undocumented small business owners in this time of uncertainty? I love that answer.
I've been through that. I see some people doing it. When you come for the American dream, the way they call it, when you come to this country, some come for a better life, some come because they want to experience another country. So I would say that I am from here because I spend most of my time here, but I keep dreaming. And I believe in this system, and I think this needs to change. I know things are going slow, and I know we have a lot of issues to do that. But when I have talks with my staff and people goes, you know, what really is going to happen if you get a notice from immigration office saying they want to go to all your documents? And at the moment, that's when you need to tell them, so, well, what if that doesn't happen? I mean, why we worry about something now that we don't know will happen or not? Just keep going, you know, keep feeding your family, keep sending them to school, give them the education, give them the values, and hopefully things will change. But that's all I can say because there's no other answer to that because not even Congress has the answer right now. So of course we don't have it. But what I do to other people who's going to start business and they're undocumented, go ahead and do it. You live in a sanctuary city. You live in a sanctuary state. So go ahead.
So let's start with the congressman on this one. As we all know, the state of California will pass our own laws, right? And recently we passed, I was in Washington, D.C., I said, the federal government will legislate all they want. I said, our legislators take their duties seriously, and they love to legislate. So you pass regulations, they'll pass things that are even more stringent here in California. But, you know, Attorney General Jeff Sessions made a recent visit to California, 2 days ago. And of course, there's the federal lawsuit that's been filed. And really, the question is, what is the impact, or how does it relate to today's immigration, that filing of that lawsuit?
Well, I served with Jeff Sessions. He was in the Senate. He chaired the immigration subcommittee, and there's no other way to say it. He is just against immigration. I mean, that was been my experience with him when he served in the Senate, and I think that's why the president selected him to be AG, and now they filed this lawsuit. Javier Becerra, our Attorney General, was a member of the House. I served with him. We talk every week. And they have very carefully crafted the legislation that became law in California. A long time ago, before I was in Congress, I was an immigration lawyer, and I used to teach immigration law at a local Santa Clara Law School. And sometimes it's a burden actually knowing the law because the rhetoric is so hot. But what California essentially did was to, I believe, and we'll find out whether the court agrees, draw the line as pretty much as close to what they could do as they could. Right now, enforcement of immigration law is a civil matter. It's not a criminal law matter. And a number of courts have already held in California and other federal courts around the United States that if ICE comes to a local jail or a state prison and says, hold that guy, you can't hold that guy unless you have a warrant, because it's a violation of that individual's Fourth Amendment rights. It's a civil action only. ICE is too darn lazy to go get an actual warrant for somebody, and so localities are going to pay damages, and California's saying we're not going to do that. You want somebody, get a warrant. And I think that's pretty sound. The other thing they've said, and they've made it statewide, you cannot essentially draft local law enforcement officers to enforce federal law. That's called commandeering. It violates the 10th Amendment. Think about it this way. If the IRS said, San Jose PD, we're going to send you in on tax cases, nobody would think that San Jose could be required to do that. And they can't be required to force immigration law either. So I think they're on sound ground. And the more complicated one is the one that impacts small businesses. You are not required, if an ICE agent comes to your business or your home, you're not required to let them in unless they have a warrant. So what the state of California said was, small business owners, you have an obligation not to let ICE into the non-public portions of your business unless they have a warrant. Now clearly you can do that as an individual. The legal question is, can you make that state policy? I think you probably can, but we'll see what the court thinks. The real issue is California is doing all this, but they can't change the immigration laws. And, we can do all we can. I was very touched by your comment of going down to help the veterans who've been deported. That is a wonderful thing to do. But isn't it outrageous that we got some guy comes back from Iraq, he's suffering from PTSD, he uses drugs and gets caught, and so we send him from the battlefield and deport him? That's a problem with the law. And I would just ask you to hold your members of Congress accountable. Either get them to perform or replace them. The power is in your hands.
Well, unfortunately, that brings an end to the program. We would love to have more questions and more dialogue and interaction between the panel and the audience, but we do know people want to have some networking and be able to talk with our panelists who are able to stay around. But I do thank Susanna, Congresswoman Lofgren, Mark, thank you for coming out. Consul General, thank you. Adolfo, thank you. Please, another round of applause. So, I told you about the upcoming LED conference, but I think they want to give you a sneak preview of what's coming in August to Los Angeles.
President and CEO of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Throughout its 40-year history, the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has served as the voice of small business in California.
Hello, my name is Veronica Corona. I'm owner and managing partner of CM Cleaning Solutions. I'm also the Southern Region Chair for the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As chairwoman of the 2018 convention, I invite you to join me, community leaders, and other small business owners to network and engage in the largest ethnic business event of the year.
Hello everyone, my name is Frank Montes, Chairman of the Board of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but more importantly, a small business owner for over 35 years. We understand, we know what you're going through, we know what you're living through, because we live it, we understand it, we feel the impact, and we are here to assist all the small businesses, not only here in California, but throughout the nation. Come, amplify voice at the 40th anniversary celebration.
California voice, my voice.
California's voice, my voice. California's voice, my voice. Your voice. Together, we can make change.
So, just a warning. The convention, registration is open on our website, right? I encourage everybody to register early. As you saw with this event and other events now throughout the year, space is going to be limited or it's going to go fast. So we encourage you, if you're able to register, register now, register early, so that way we make sure we're able to accommodate you at the event. So don't forget, August 22nd through the 24th, Los Angeles, California. We have a beautiful venue that we're using there, the LA Downtown Hotel. And then, of course, March 16th in Sacramento for the annual legislative day. And remember, you can always call the chamber office if you have a question or need assistance with anything, both from a business perspective, but also from a chamber perspective. I thank you all for being here today. I thank you for taking the time and join us for the reception. I think this reception is just in the back there, and they've got, food and drink and mingle and network. So again, thank you everybody for being here.
Are they sitting their own beer? No, but I get to stop some of the white folks open. Okay. So it's like
Finish.